News, I am Ann Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, third morning across Gauteng, where you drive off to work in the rain. So as we said yesterday, go as early as you possibly can just to counteract the impact of the wet weather conditions. We will be looking at a morning of significant crashes and significant delays again, and just generally slow-moving conditions. You can see that already on the highways. A crash going into Polokwane on the Zetnin bypass, the N1, as you come up from Ultra City just before Church Street. Big truck is overturned there. If you're routing in or out of Polokwane, that's likely to be disruptive. Durban, 44 mils of rain overnight, so conditions wet this morning. A landslide near Pilani Mall on the M35. That's the bottom end of Umlazi, so expect some delays there. And Cape Town Baden Powell Drive closed at Monwabisi due to thick sand. That's Sandy Corner at Khayelitsha. And the Huguenot Tunnel closed to truck and high vehicle traffic due to high winds at the viaduct section. Truckers are being diverted locally via the old De Toys Kloof Pass route. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer action. It was raining goals as SuperSport United sink Kaizer Chiefs. And in tennis action, Matteo Berrettini dumps Novak Djokovic out of the Qatar Open in Doha. We'll bring you these stories and more at around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 7 minutes after 6 on this Wednesday, the 19th of February, 2025. Hey, good morning and welcome to it, the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and I'm here to deliver your Morning Brief. Come, let us spend the next 3 hours together informing and engaging each other and sharpening each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. Coming up on the show, we'll tell you this. It's a big day, right? The Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, taking center stage this afternoon. He is set to table the 2025 budget, and that will be before the National Assembly this afternoon. Godongwana faces the daunting task of directing public expenditure to key service delivery priorities such as education, health, social welfare, infrastructure, but also at the same time while facing the significant revenue shortfall, which by some estimate runs as high as 300 billion rand. So there's also this growing pressure to reduce the country's nearly 6 trillion rand debt and the cost of servicing that debt, while also boosting spending on economy stimulating and job creating programs. How exactly will he achieve all of that? It is a daunting task. That's coming up at 2 p.m. But on this show, we'll have two takes on that story. Zwelinzi Mavavi will join us at about 10 to 7 from the South African Federation of Trade Unions to give his take, as well as Mdumiseni Ntuli just after 7, the ANC chief whip, to give perspectives from the ANC on the budget coming up later on this afternoon. Then we'll focus on this story. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says the main reason why load reduction is more prominent in townships and informal settlements is because of the number of illegal connections in these areas. So Ramokgopa has appeared, as you'll know, before the South African Human Rights Commission's National Investigative Inquiry into the impact of load reduction on human rights. At about 20 to 7 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Advocate Tsepo Madlingozi, who is a commissioner at the South African Human Rights Commission. Then later on, at about 20 past 8, we'll tell you about this story, the concern about counterfeit designer products. So the Gauteng Finance MEC, Lebogang Maile, says government must collaborate with local designers and organizations to protect South Africa's fashion industry from the growing threat of counterfeit products. Later on, at about 20 past 8, I'll be in conversation with Laduma Ngokolo, who is the designer of the fashion designer behind the brand Maxhosa. That's coming up at about 20 past 8. Of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded for you this morning. and Musa with your news updates every half hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. And of course, through it all, your calls to the number 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on the number 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Hey, good morning to you, Anne.
Good morning.
Did you hear me rushing through my intro there, yeah? We've got business to
We
take
gotta
care
keep
of.
it moving.
We've got business to take care of, I tell you.
Indeed.
Let's take care of business. What's on your diary this
Well,
morning?
as you've mentioned, a very important day to date is the budget speech by the Finance Minister. It is seen as a critical tool for shaping the economic policy and determining government's priorities. So we're looking at expectations and predictions ahead of the speech. Experts believing that the Finance Minister will announce a raft of tax adjustments, including value-added tax, personal income tax and corporate to cover the revenue shortfall, and also looking at views from the small and medium businesses, hoping that the speech will improve business confidence and boost investor appetite, as well as, looking at the situation with regards to struggling state-owned enterprises, also still overcoming the crisis of load shedding, load reduction, Transnet and Metro Rail remaining still in deep trouble. So we're focusing on that. We're also previewing a briefing by government on the first foreign ministers meeting that starts tomorrow, South Africa's presidency of the G20, and its theme solidarity, equality and sustainability. In court, 5 alleged drug lords are expected back, and they were arrested in connection with the drug bust worth over 2 billion rand at a farm in Limpopo in July last year for allegedly operating a drug manufacturing lab, and the accused are still in police custody. The Gauteng Economic Development and Finance MEC Lebogang Mayele calling on the Liquor Board to relook into the operating license of Zanzo nightclub in Hatfield, and this is after the graphic videos showing patrons being tortured for allegedly failing to settle the bill that went viral. Police have since launched a manhunt. They are looking for 8 foreign nationals suspected to have partaken in the torture. And the Department of Health is calling for calm, and this is following an outbreak of the hand, foot and mouth disease in KwaZulu-Natal province, and that is mostly affecting Durban. The department is working with the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, saying they are closely monitoring the situation while also providing the necessary support to the province. In the last few days, the number of cases in the province has increased to 195. And then lastly, the Gauteng Department of Health giving an update on the issue of water and electricity that's impacting the service delivery at Kupanong Hospital in Sidibeng and Vescopis in Tshwane. So some of the stories that we are focusing on.
All right, Anne, thank you for that. That's Anne Musa. She'll give you updates on the news every half hour here on the Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So just before giving you your weather for today, we've got to share with you some news regarding the South African Weather Service's website, right? Part of the difficulty we now have these days is that we can't just click on the website of the South African Weather Service and get the weather straight up. We have to go through, through some flaming hoops, really, to obtain the weather details before we share them with you. So we thought we'd bring the CEO of the South African Weather Service, that is Isham Abada, who is also South Africa's permanent representative at the World Meteorological Organization, which is a UN agency. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning. So it's been about a month or thereabouts. How far are we? And do we understand, do we have a fuller understanding of the reasons behind the crash of the South African Weather Service website?
Good morning, Tulas, and good morning to your listeners. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. In terms of understanding the reasons, this seems to be a ransomware attack by a group called Ransom Hub. We've received a generic ransom note, but there's been no specifics around any amount of money or anything like that we've received yet. So also our cybersecurity specialists that are on site assisting us with this matter have not been able to, indicate what it is that they want. So we're not sure at this point exactly what, the attackers would want.
What do we know about Ransom Hub, the cybercrime group that is believed to be behind it?
Well, from the reports that we've been getting from our service provider, they appear to attack businesses generally. So it's not only government departments, but they've been responsible for attacks on many other private sector businesses as well. So the modus operandi generally is to come in, encrypt your environment, and then obviously demand a ransom. So in most instances, they'll say you have X amount of days. If you don't pay X amount, we'll release your information onto the web. So currently, we haven't seen that release of information onto the web, and at this point in time, we are a little bit uncertain as to why and what they want to do with our weather data. So it's a bit difficult to understand their motives, but I'm assuming it's financial because these are criminals.
So do they hold information that belongs to you and are threatening to abuse it in one way or another? I'm just battling to understand, also given that you are saying that no real ransom amount has been demanded.
Yeah, that's the difficulty that we sit with as well, because, this is weather information from our servers and stuff like that. So we're having a bit of a difficult time understanding exactly what their motivation for this attack was. So what they've done in essence is they've encrypted our virtual environment completely. So now we're having a situation where we have to go back to our sort of manual systems to ensure that we continue with our critical services. And we then have to access data from, our backups on tape and stuff like that. And then we've got to bring up our network is quite complex as well in terms of the number of servers and that kind of thing.
So lastly then, tell us about the efforts to bring back your website. I understand that you're planning to have that back up within a week or so. How will you achieve that?
Yeah, so look, we've already started with quite a bit of work over the last couple of weeks. And I just want to let you know as well that we have a business continuity plan, and that's why we've been able to render our critical services, specifically in aviation and marine, and also severe weather. You'll note that earlier this week we issued warnings around the severe rain that's happening around the country, and some of the lightning and flooding instances that we've talked about to a lot of our media partners and so forth. So we've been able to at least put out those severe weather warnings timelessly. But in terms of us getting our systems back up, you're right, we're looking at probably about another week or so. So we've managed to reconfigure some of our critical servers, and as I said to you, we've been doing forecasting products for internal use, but also public good, and some of our commercial clients also we've managed to service through other alternative means. Our aviation website you mentioned earlier, and also our data streams are starting to come up. A lot of our surface observations are also starting to come on stream again.
Right.
I think Kimberley is the one that we're battling with a little bit, and then also regionally, because we're also a regional hub for the World Meteorological Organization. We're managing to start servicing some of our SADC partners. I think currently we've got Botswana and another one that we're battling with, but that's on their side, not our side.
All right.
So a lot of Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That's Isham Abada, who is the South African Weather Service CEO and also South Africa's permanent representative to the World Meteorological Organization, which is a UN agency. As we heard there to Mr. Abada, the alternative methods being used include the use of social media to disseminate the information, the weather information. So let's give you your weather information, sourced it from their social media pages. Not so convenient, but it is there for you to use, in comparison, of course, to the website. Not so convenient. So let me start with that then and tell you about the weather warnings that the Weather Service has issued. 3 of them. Orange level 5 warning. It says disruptive rain leading to flooding of roads, bridges and settlements, damage to property and infrastructure and danger to life. That is expected over Gauteng, in the north and along the coast and adjacent interior of KwaZulu-Natal, extreme southeastern parts of the Eastern Cape, eastern parts of the Free State and the Northwest, as well as the southwestern parts of Mpumalanga. So quite extensive, that weather system. Then there's a yellow level 2 warning for disruptive rain leading to localized flooding of susceptible bridges, roads and settlements, damage to property and infrastructure, and that is expected over KwaZulu-Natal, central and eastern parts of the Free State and the Northwest, western bushveld of Limpopo, central and southwestern parts of Mpumalanga, as well as the extreme eastern parts of the Eastern Cape. And lastly, a yellow level 1 warning says damaging winds resulting in difficulty in navigation, dragging anchor and small vessels taking on water. That is expected between Cape St. Francis and Gansbaai. The temperatures then for the major centers: Pretoria will be 18 to 21, Johannesburg 15 to 19, Mbombela 19 to 24, Polokwane 18 to 23, Mahikeng 16 to 21, Bloemfontein 17 to 21, Kimberley 18 to 26, Uppington 20 to 34, Cape Town 21 to 34, George 19 to 24, Gqeberha 19 to 23, East London 19 to 22, Durban 21 to 24, Richards Bay 21 to 26, and finally Pietermaritzburg 16 to 21.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, primeless 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
It was all good just a week ago. Life was smooth. I was paying almost nothing for electricity tokens. All that changed when I was given a big fine for buying illegal electricity tokens from illegal vendors and my neighbor for tampering with his meter. Now, I might go to jail when all I had to do was register for free basic electricity at my local municipality since I'm unemployed. Ungathatha ama chance. Buy electricity legally. Report illegal electricity token sales in your area and meter tampering to Eskom on 0800 11 27 22.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
24 minutes after 6. Let's focus on this story now. On Monday, a Delta Airlines regional jet flipped upside down after landing at Toronto Pearson International Airport in Canada. The crash injured 18 of the 80 people on board, 3 of them critically injured. The incident occurred amid severe weather conditions in Toronto, which has been grappling with high winds and heavy snow. Let's speak now to the aviation analyst, Phuthego Mojapele, who joins me now for that conversation. Good morning to you, Phuthego. The pictures that we are seeing of this jet flipped upside down, belly up, quite literally, are quite dramatic. How often or how rare is it to have that kind of a crash with the plane itself landing up, belly up?
Yeah, good morning to us and to your listeners. This is very rare, to be quite honest with you. I do believe that there were some conditions that led to weather conditions that led to this incident to have happened. What we have heard from the local authorities and from the crew that was filming this, there was another airplane that was about to take off, waiting for clearance to join the runway. And when this happened, so what happened here is that on the normal, they did the procedure normally, and I think they were fine at the final approach. And it looks like they have hit by a shear wind, which is basically an air pocket, which changes the conditions of the landing. And at that particular time, the crew ended up basically landing hard. And that resulted on both landing gear collapsed, and the fuselage immediately touched the surface hard, and the left wing basically ripped off. Hence you see that it went and flipped. But basically this was a wind shear that hit them on the finals.
But miraculously, there were no lives lost in that incident. Is that a factor of this was an aircraft that had almost completed its landing?
Yes. So one of the things that we must also realize here that there was a snow there, heavy snow. I'm sure we can see on the pictures that there's heavy snow there. And the other thing also was that the crew that was there had absolutely done a sterling job to be able to, because this thing was already on fire when it touched the ground, but they have managed to immediately evacuate everybody who was on board and save lives. So the aircraft had already come to almost stop, because when it landed hard, the speed was already reduced significantly, and the crew made it possible that they evacuate everybody on that. But I must say, incidents like this are very rare. We do have a couple of CRJ 900s that we operate in South Africa. They seems to be workhorse of the skies, particularly in regional operations. We do have SEM Air operates quite a number of them, and I do believe that it was an unfortunate incident, and there isn't really anything that the captain there had over 10 years experience in that aircraft. So clearly, it's somebody who had enough experience. We will wait for the investigation and hear really what has happened. Absolutely.
So, Phuthego, what is the message, though, in terms of the safety of air travel, right? Someone, a lot of people are jittery flyers to start off with. Someone taking this incident of a plane belly up, a few weeks ago, we were reporting on that fatal crash in Washington, and a few months ago we were talking about a fatal crash in South Korea, etc., etc. And I read a report on USA Today that says as of 17th February there have been some 87 aviation accidents reported in the United States of varying degrees. Someone watching all of this, can we still vouch for air travel being safer than any other mode of travel? That, remember that saying that you are more likely to die in a car crash than you are from an air-related incident.
Yes, you're quite correct. You are more safer on an airplane than on the ground. The truth of the matter is that, the issue of safety start from the or local authorities, which is your local authorities, civil aviation, they need to ensure that everybody who attends to the airplane that operates has a competency to deal with that equipment, aircraft. Now, if there is no check and balances and verification of all those that have laid the hands on the airplane, the safety can be compromised. But I can assure you, all the countries, particularly South Africa, let me talk about my country. I know for a fact here in South Africa, we are more safer with an airplanes that operate out of South Africa than anywhere else in the world. And I can say it loud and clear that even FAA, we are far better than them, even though they're in America. Air traffic and air travel is still the most reliable. It's just incidents that has happened based on other issues that may be known to them that led to that incident. So passengers need not to worry about this. It would be investigated. The nice thing about it is that you will know what led to the incident to have happened. Unlike any other car accident, when it happened, you wouldn't know what happened. But in this case, we are responsible in the industry. We will give our listeners and nation about what had led to the incident to have happened.
Good to know. Thank you for that. That's Phuthego Mojapele, who is an aviation analyst, weighing in on that crash. Those dramatic pictures, look out for them on social media. Quite dramatic, seeing an aeroplane belly up, quite literally. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Standard Bank has generally shown confidence in the government of national unity ahead of the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's 2025 budget policy statement in Cape Town this afternoon. The bank says risks to the country's fiscus include possible bailouts for state-owned entities and an expansion in social welfare. Meanwhile, some economists have predicted that the minister may announce an increase in funding for the Defence Department. Last month, 14 South African soldiers were killed in fighting between the M23 rebels and the Congolese military in eastern DRC. And the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has briefed foreign ministers of key European countries about the America-Russia talks which took place in Saudi Arabia. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Everything in Joburg and Gauteng going slowly this morning, certainly the highways, because of the wet weather conditions. The rain is just keeping volume sort of very slow moving, and at peak hour with so much more traffic into the mix, everything is just sort of being held up. So another busy morning. The advice yesterday during the rain was to go early. That would have worked for those that heeded that advice. Get out of the house, get on those roads as early as you can. They are already backed up, and you don't want to be running late and having to push too hard and too fast to sort of make up time in these conditions. That is asking for big trouble. Very heavy already on the M1 South leaving Pretoria. A crash between Rigel Avenue and the R21. That queue's almost back as far as Linwood Road. Lights are out. Roger Dyson at 4 Trekker coming around from the industrial area. Very heavy. And a big queue down the Mopani Highway this morning from Theo Martins all the way down into Eskia Pathlali. Again, just a busy route with slow-go traffic. Durban, no surprises. The M4 roadworks have been lifted timely. Yesterday, this time you're stuck in major delays coming up from Prospect and splitting onto the M2 up to splitting onto the M4 up to Jacobs, but none of that this morning. It is normal flows through there. And Cape Town, weather-related closures due to wind. Baden-Powell Drive closed at Monwabisi. There's a local divert through the bottom of Khayelitsha, and the Huguenot Tunnel stays closed to high-sided vehicles due to strong winds at the viaduct section. Truck is being diverted over the old De Toys Kloof Pass route. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So yesterday I made the joke that SuperSport may well be saying to the Soweto Giants, I want you one by one. But last night they got the first one and they rampaged almost like 4x4 through them, right?
Yeah. How crazy was that? Wow. It was just raining non-stop goals.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know what to say because this was a category 4 disaster when it comes to Kaizer
Yo,
Chiefs.
oh
my gosh.
This is the point where I extricate myself from your situation. When the listeners come for you, you're on your own.
Yeah, I know. They just couldn't weather the storm. Sorry for you, Amakosi fans. 4-1 was your defeat against a SuperSport United outfit at FNB Stadium. That was too good. Things even got worse for Chiefs when they had Gaston Sereno sent off for that second bookable offence in the 69th minute. But let's hear now from the SuperSport, the winning coach, Gavin Hunt.
I thought I've seen us play better this season and haven't got the results. So, I thought, to see the ball go in the net, which is something we haven't done very well this season. It was good to see, especially the first 2 or 3. But I thought, as I said, I've seen us play better, but, it was a real greasy night, and we played to our strengths. And
more action. Chipper United leapfrogging Cape Town City in the Betway Premiership standings, running out 2-0 victors at Athlone Stadium. Now, City suffered back-to-back defeats for the first time under Mohsin Etegral as they dropped below the Chile Boys on goal difference, with both teams sitting on 21 points. Another match, Magesi secured 3 points in their Premiership encounter against Polokwane City, claiming a hard-fought 1-0 victory at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium. Elsewhere, Stellenbosch FC grabbed 2 late goals to beat TS Galaxy 3-2 in their Premiership match at the Mbombela Stadium. And Stellenbosch FC goalkeeper Lee Langeveld has stated that their defeats against Kaizer Chiefs in the Premiership have fueled their determination as they prepare to face Amakosi in the Nedbank Cup quarterfinals next month.
Exciting draw, I think. Like you said, they've beaten us twice already, but that's in the past. Obviously, the Nedbank Cup offers a new chance for us to get one over them. So hopefully we'll be ready. I'm sure we will be ready. I felt the 2 games we lost against them was basically through our own mistakes. So hopefully we can correct them and, like I said, get a win over them. I don't want to go too deep into that. But yeah, we analysed the games. We felt we could have done better in certain situations. And I'm sure we'll improve on it.
Tennis action, Matteo Berrettini dumping Novak Djokovic out of the ATP 500 Qatar Open in Doha in his first career victory over the former world number 1 in 5 attempts and a first win against a top 10 player in over a year. The 28-year-old Italian Berrettini won 7-6, 6-2. That's your sport on the Morning Brief. We'll rally back at the top of the hour. More sport. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela. So Ndauling, tell me about M&A activity recovering in China. What's that about?
So it's really a case of adapt or die on that front. Thulas activity rebounding after years of decline and driven by government stimulus measures and pressure from U.S. tariffs. According to Deal Logic data, the value of deals in the fourth quarter jumped 78.5% to $129 billion, reversing a 5-year decline. This uptick in deal flow is expected to continue this year, driven by Beijing's efforts to consolidate domestic industries and boost competitiveness. Now, the government's stimulus measures introduced in late September are seen as a key driver of the recent surge in activity as companies look to adapt to the changing economic landscape. Additionally, the pressure to adapt to U.S. tariffs imposed by the Trump administration is also driving Chinese companies to diversify their supply chains and consolidate. Now, the decline in M&A activity in recent years was due to weak economic activity and conservative positioning by Chinese corporations. However, as mentioned, experts believe that the current uptick in deal flow will continue, driven by factors such as industry fragmentation and the need for companies to adapt to the new economic reality. Deloitte's Stanley Law said that small companies in China are feeling the pressure of tariffs, with many reporting declining revenues. As a result, consolidation is becoming a more necessary strategy for survival.
So, but excuse the cliche when I'm telling it can be helped.
Let's hear it.
All that glitters is gold for DRD Gold, right?
That's right, Tilas. And unlike one of its competitors, Pan-African Resources, that recently reported results, DRD Gold has an unhedged position on gold, allowing it to enjoy the full benefits of that glittering gold price. Now, during the half-year period, earnings increased by 65% to 970 million rands. The strong performance, of course, largely attributed to the 26% increase in the average rand gold price received by the company. In terms of production, DRD Gold reported a 1% increase in gold production, while gold sales rose by the same percentage to 82,531 ounces. Now, the company's all-in sustaining costs increased by 6%. So overall, operationally, the group fared well. It remains cash positive and debt-free. Looking ahead, the miner says it's on track to meet its guided output of between 155,000 and 165,000 ounces of gold for the full year.
All right, please give us our first roundup of market activity for the morning.
So U.S. markets back online, really starting the week on a slow note, with stocks closing just above the flat line in yesterday's trading session. And this, of course, ahead of the Fed minutes. Traders also monitoring those Ukrainian peace talks. With that, the S&P 500 closed 0.3% higher. Sentiment on the local front pretty upbeat, with the JSE in the green. The all share closing 0.75% higher yesterday. The rand also steady this morning, ahead of that all-important national budget, sitting at 18.40 to the dollar this hour. Looking at Asian markets, those stocks pretty mixed, also tracking, progress when it comes to those Ukrainian peace talks.
All right, that's Dowling Lechela with the first update for the morning. Look out for the second update from Dowling, and that's coming up after 7:30 here on The Morning Brief.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
The Mangaung Metro Municipality is hosting an investment summit to bring investment to Bloemfontein. The summit will take place on 19 and 20 February at the City Hall and aims to bring together different economic role players from across the country and abroad. To be part of the summit or for more info, call 073 184 8972 or send an email to summit@mangaung.co.za. Mangaung, at the heart of it all.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag The Morning Brief.
17 minutes to 7. Let's turn our attention to this story now. The Minister of Electricity and Energy, Dr. Thulasizwe Simelane, says the main reason why load reduction is more prominent in townships and informal settlements is because of the number of illegal connections in these areas. Simelane appeared at the South African Human Rights Commission's National Investigative Inquiry into the impact of load reduction on human rights. The inquiry was set up following complaints received from some quarters of society that load reduction is seemingly on the rise. Let's say good morning to Tsepo Madlingozi, who is a commissioner with the South African Human Rights Commission. Good morning to you, Commissioner, and thank you for your time. Just the background and rationale for why you are holding this inquiry. Eskom and other power utilities such as City Power say they need it to counter the impact of illegal connections on their infrastructure, but the impact is felt by communities. Why are you holding this inquiry?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having us. Yes, last year we received a number of complaints from Limpopo, from Mpumalanga, from Free State, from Gauteng, from customers of Eskom, City Power, and other utilities, alleging that the system of load reduction amounts to energy apartheid, alleging that it is unfair discrimination, alleging that it is collective punishment. If it is about illegal connection, why are you also punishing those of us who are paying? But lastly, alleging that it does not adhere to principles of fair administrative action, in a sense that, customers never, that's what they claim, never get enough notification. So this inquiry held according to our constitution and our act seeks to find out, number one, the extent of load reduction, the policy and legal justifications, and its impact on human rights.
So you heard from the Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, the leadership of Eskom. I saw at some point presentations by City Power. Let's start with those, the reasons that are advanced, largely center around the municipal electricity infrastructure and the protection of the grid. What have you made of those explanations?
Yes, we can't communicate any findings now, but I can just summarize what they said in a nutshell. The minister, as well as Eskom and City Power, their main submission has to do with the protection of the infrastructure, that if the system is overloaded, and it's overloaded because there are illegal connections and the system cannot cope, they have a duty, not just if they like, they have an obligation to switch it off to ensure that it doesn't get damaged, it doesn't explode, because if that happens, then it will take even 6 months to fix it. The explosion can also cause loss of life. Therefore, according to the act as well as the regulations, they say that they are forced to do so, and they are really solely blaming the issue of overloading on illegal connections. A substation is made for 10 households, but now because they're backyards, dwellers, because there is an informal settlement, the system gets overloaded. That's number one. So they have to switch off. When you ask them, why is this amounting to collective punishment? Why are you not able to switch off those who are illegally connecting? They explain that the way the grid is configured, they are unable to do that. They are unable to switch individual customers. Now, on the other side, customers are saying, but in historically wide suburbs, you are able to do so. Why have you not, in the past 30 years, invested in infrastructure, invested in enough smart meters, so that, if it's smart meter, you are able to see if there's tampering and you are able to switch it off. And then lastly, people saying the communication, we understand if there are reasons that this should be done for health and safety reasons, but we are not told, when there's going to be load reduction. We are not told exactly what is the reason. The notifications are on WhatsApp, they're on the website, they're in English. Therefore, from a fair administrative perspective, that it is not fair, So those were the reasons for the submissions from both sides.
So from the community side of things, there were many presentations that were made, but I suppose what I found to be a really powerful capturing of the issue that sort of links it directly to the question that you are probing as the Human Rights Commission came from the Sanko leader in Vosloorus, Sipho Buthelezi, and in his words, and I quote here, if there is no supply of electricity, adequate housing is affected, a right to education, health, human dignity, all of those are affected. I suppose that goes to the heart of the issues that you are probing. Tell me about the community submissions.
Yes, we did get a number of submissions, written submissions, and then we invited a sample for oral testimony from Vosloorus, from Khayelitsha, from Yeoville in the inner city, from Hammarskraal, from different localities, semi-rural, rural, as well as urban townships, as well as inner city. And the submission, the themes are similar. The theme says, we understand that electricity, there's no right to electricity. But without electricity, the other rights, intersecting rights are affected. The right to dignity, Mr. Buthelezi said, you go outside of your house with unironed clothes. People think you are an indecent person, in his words. Children cannot study. Children cannot go to school without a meal. He said that he's a member of the SGB at one of the schools, and when there's electricity cut, the school is unable to cook for the children in terms of the school nutrition program. So the kids go to school hungry. At school, they cannot eat. It affects dropouts. It affects concentration. But they also, committee spoke about a vicious circle. It is also the time when criminality happens, when it's dark. So even ESCOM infrastructure, city power infrastructure gets damaged, cables get stolen when it is dark. So there is that vicious circle. You protect the grid, the infrastructure by switching off, but it is those times when people take an opportunity, to switch off. People spoke about the right to life. People spoke about the right to health, how their medication at home gets affected. The Department of Health also came to say they have to transfer patients between, different facilities if the generators, does not kick in, for example. So the right to dignity, the right to equality, the right to health, the right to education, all those rights are the ones that are implicated in this.
All right. Thank you for that interesting and important bit of work that the South African Human Rights Commission is doing at the moment. That's Tsepo Madlingozi, who is a commissioner with the South African Human Rights Commission. And I want to know from you your reflections on load reduction as separate from load shedding. The argument on the one side is that it has become a new form of economic discrimination, but the counter argument is that it is about protecting and lessening the pressure on municipal infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, and to protect the grid. What do you make of it all? Give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Lots of rain about northern provinces. The 511 that links you from Brits to Beesterkraal, just north of Brits, that's flooded. You won't be able to get through there this morning. And some pretty impressive floodwaters on the old Middelburg Emelacheni 555 road. So go very carefully through there. Otherwise, use the N4 as your alternative through the area. Pretoria this morning, crash at Rigel Avenue a bit earlier, just slowing traffic coming through from the Linwood Road side. There's also been a crash before Garsfontein going north. So pretty heavy backlog as you line up from the R21 towards that scene as well. All the highways around the Gauteng just generally slower because of the wet weather conditions. Day 3 of the rain. You can just imagine pockets of flooding and surface water and extreme driving conditions this morning. Durban Higginson Highway very heavily backed up. If you're leaving Chatsworth, big queues from Bayview, sort of central Chatsworth, right down towards Havenside and down towards Mobeni. A stationary vehicle, Sabaya through to Gateway, causing a slowdown for motorists coming in from the airport side. And Cape Town, a couple of closures due to weather. Baden-Powell at Monua BC is closed, so you'll have to divert through the bottom of Khayelitsha if you're on that route. And the Huguenot Tunnel outside Cape Town closed to trucks. High-sided vehicles prevented from using the tunnel due to strong winds that persist around that viaduct section. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
V up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra featuring integrated Galaxy AI. Get it on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for only 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
5 minutes to 7 on this Wednesday. Let's turn our attention to this story now. The Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, is set to table the 2025 budget speech before the National Assembly this afternoon. Godongwana faces the daunting task of directing public expenditure to key service delivery priorities such as education, health, social welfare and infrastructure, while facing a significant revenue shortfall, which by some estimates runs as high as 300 billion rand. Let's welcome Thulasizwe Simelane, who is the General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU. Good morning to you, Mr. Vavi, and thank you for your time this morning. So just from your perspective as Labour, this, of course, comes off the back of the quarterly labour force survey that came out yesterday, showing an ever so slight decline in the unemployment rate. What would you want to see coming out of the budget speech that would talk to issues such as unemployment?
Well, good morning to you, Mfoga Simelane first. We have given up on a government that will listen to us. And yesterday we convened a People's Budget Summit in Cape Town, where we had collected 100,000 signatures of South Africans calling to an end to budget cuts and austerity programs. We would have hoped that the minister will send a delegation or even come himself to receive those 100,000 signatures. None of that happened. He didn't pitch up. There was nobody from the Treasury to receive those signatures. Today we are marching in Cape Town, and we hope that workers and working class formations will be joining us, again making the same call we have been making for many years now, that there can never be development and that the state will never address the legacy of colonial apartheid, inequalities and underdevelopment facing rural, former Bandustan townships, informal settlements, when it is embarking on a austerity program based on budget cuts. And the statistics yesterday that confirm that we are moving nowhere into the right direction when it comes to unemployment sort of vindicates us that we are right, that South Africa is embarking on totally inappropriate fiscal monetary policies. Unemployment yesterday, when you use the real definition of an expanded definition, didn't move at all. Still sitting at 41.9%. And I know that you guys like to quote the narrow definition of unemployment, which is showed that even there, it only moved 0.2%. Who needs a 0.2% when 6 of your 9 provinces are sitting with unemployment above 40%, with supposedly the richest province from the mineral point of view, with the second richest land in the world, Northwest, heading the rest of the provinces with 52% unemployment rate. We are in a disaster. It's a pity that our government have no ear and have no time to listen to the poor. It only listen to the standard banks, economists, and that are always on SABC trying to influence the public that there is no alternative to neoliberalism.
All right, Mr. Vavi, I'm completely out of time. Thank you for that. That's the General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, Zwelinzima Vavi, speaking ahead of the budget speech to be tabled at 2 p.m. by the Finance Minister, Enoch Kotongwana. That brings us to 7 a.m. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30760. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, expectations ahead of the Finance Minister's budget speech and concern over increase in hand, foot and mouth disease outbreak. Good morning. Standard Bank has generally shown confidence in the government of national unity ahead of the Finance Minister Enoch Kotongwana's 2025 budget policy statement in Cape Town this afternoon. The bank says risks to the country's fiscus include possible bailouts for state-owned entities and an expansion in social welfare. This follows a recent court ruling that the requirements for the application for the Social Relief of Distress grant were unconstitutional and ordered government to relax them. Standard Bank anticipates that an increase in household consumption and fixed investment will support the growth of the local economy by 1.8% this year. Gulamba Lim is a chief economist at the bank.
But we have taken into account that if you were to double the number of beneficiaries receiving the social wage, it would add another 33 billion rand per year from this year in today's money to the overall fiscus. If you had to add another 100 rand to the stipend that social welfare beneficiaries are garnering, our sense is it could add up to 100 billion rand to the fiscus. So these are very significant items that needs to be considered. We've also opened our minds to the very recent suggestion by Transnet that they may need 50 billion rand over 3 years.
Meanwhile, some economists have predicted the Finance Minister may announce an increase in funding for the Defence Department. Last month, 14 South African soldiers were killed in fighting between the M23 rebels and the Congolese military in eastern DRC. This has sparked calls for the withdrawal of the South African soldiers deployed to the DRC. Some, including political parties, say the soldiers are under-resourced because the department is underfunded. Klanti Pai is a senior economist at the consultancy firm PwC.
The first area, of course, that we know is likely to change is our spending on defense. That's an area that we've been cutting over a period of time. In the budget last year, in terms of defense and security, that was seen to will be growing by 1%. Now we know that politicians are calling for much higher increases, given the situation that we've seen in the DRC with Rwanda and the cops and South African soldiers that have been killed. So we probably see there, seeing some push to increase spending.
Meanwhile, the Northwest Premier Lazarus Mokgosi visited the family of one of the fallen soldiers yesterday. Itumeleng Moreo's body was among those President Cyril Ramaphosa handed over to bereaved families almost a week ago. Members of the Provincial Executive Council accompanied the Premier, who says they are keeping the bereaved families in their prayers.
It's not only them who have suffered this great loss. The government and the nation has also suffered. And we said to them, they must accept that in this world we come and we go. It just depends on how we are living this water. But also we said to them, this is a national funeral under the auspices of the military. And therefore, as a province, we come and put also our contribution as a support. But most importantly, we are facilitating between Pretoria and us here in the province.
The KwaZulu-Natal Health Department has expressed concern on the rapid spread of the hand, foot and mouth disease in the province. The latest figure shows that the number of cases in the province is increased to 195, with 147 in the Durban metro. Symptoms of the disease include blisters in the mouth and on the hands and feet in young children. MEC Thulasizwe Simelane addressed the media in Durban yesterday.
Your vigilance, both as parents and as educators, is critical, but we need to do more. Every school, every home, and every community must take this outbreak seriously. To parents, please, if your child shows symptoms, do not send them to school. We want to emphasize this. If your child shows symptoms, do not send them to school. To the teachers, continue educating our children on hygiene and take extra precautions in your classrooms.
Further field, and finally, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has briefed foreign ministers of key European countries about the America-Russian talks which took place in Saudi Arabia. They were the first high-level U.S.-Russia talks since Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine almost 3 years ago. The BBC's Sarah Smith has the details.
From Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, we heard that those were not negotiations about how to end the war. They were simply initial talks between America and Russia, who will now put together top teams who will speak to each other about the parameters of how the war might end. And the Secretary of State was very clear. He said if they do get to the point of actually negotiating what a peace deal or a ceasefire might look like, at that point Ukraine will be brought into the talks and some European nations will be consulted. But for now, those talks are very much between only the United States and Russia.
Recapping the top stories, Standard Bank has generally shown confidence in the Government of National Unity ahead of the Finance Minister Inogo Dongwana's 2025 budget policy statement in Cape Town this afternoon. The bank says risks to the country's fiscus, including possible bailouts for state-owned entities and an expansion in social welfare. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
February may be a short month, but without insurance, your car insurance savings could be big. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you win. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A lot of rain across northern provinces. The 511 route that links Brits and Beesterkraal is currently closed due to really significant flooding out that side. That is just before you get to Beesterkraal, going from the Brits area. You won't be able to get through there by the looks of things. Flooding on the N4 in central Emerlafeni and flooding on the 555 route between Emerlafeni and Middelburg. So go carefully in those areas and expect some delays. Joburg, the Mike 1 from Monday all the way through to about Houghton Estate, up to about sort of Glenhove Road. Just gives you an idea. That's an extended queue, and it just gives you an idea of how slow things are this morning. Good barometer of that. Crash on Pretoria's N1 North before Garsfontein, so queuing pressure coming up from the R21. Cape Town M5, very heavy this morning from Southfield all the way through to the N2 highway, and there's been a crash on your way to Stellenbosch for motorists coming out of Somerset West just before Annandale Road, R44 under some queuing pressure, and Baden-Powell remains closed this morning at Monwabisi with a bit of localised congestion around the Khayelitsha detour routes. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer news. The Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nasruddin Nabi apologizes to Chiefs fans after that heavy loss to SuperSport United last night. And in tennis action, the world number one Arina Sabalenka beat the qualifier Veronika Kudermetova to begin her Dubai Open campaign. We'll have details of these sports stories and more around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, folks. It's good to be in your company this morning. It's just gone 9 minutes after 7. We're into the second hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. Let me tell you what's coming up. We'll be focusing a bit on ANC politics, right? There have been these major decisions that have been taken with regard to the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC in Gauteng, as well as the one in KwaZulu-Natal. You remember a few weeks ago, the National Executive Committee of the ANC spoke about, quote-unquote, a reconfiguration of the provincial leadership structures of these two provinces in light of the poor performance that they suffered during the elections in May last year. Well, that reconfiguration, we now know the full contours thereof, and the SABC's senior political reporter, Samgele Masego, will come through and give us a bit more detail on what this reconfiguration now looks like, and importantly, what the implications thereof are for the political trajectory and stability of the ANC. Then, speaking of the ANC, immediately after our conversation with Samgele, we'll be talking to Mdumiseni Ntuli, who is the ANC's parliamentary chief whip, and we'll be talking ahead of the budget to be delivered by the finance minister, Enoch Godongwana. It's the budget of the coalition government, the government of national unity, but the ANC, no doubt, had a major influence in shaping that budget in light of all these conversations we've been having about priorities that we are chasing with limited resources. We'll be having that conversation with Mdumiseni Ntuli. That's at about 7:20. So those are the key issues that we are covering for you in this hour. But in it all, your part and your voice critical to the conversation that we are driving. The number to dial for your inputs, the number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Whether you're having a morning or a morning, you woke up like this or like this. Mornings love McDonald's. So, choose happy and enjoy a short filter coffee for only R14.90 at McDonald's. What's not to?
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're in the private security industry, and by switching to OUTsurance, we save 785 Rand a month. It's an extra tank of fuel, it's extra reward money that we pay our officers. When it comes to insurance, OUTsurance is our security company.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 14 minutes after 7. So the elected ANC Gauteng chairperson, Panyaza Lesufi, has now been given a new role as co-convener of the restructured Provincial Executive Committee alongside former Johannesburg Mayor Amos Masondo. The restructuring, dubbed a reconfiguration, comes as the party seeks to revitalize itself following poor results in the 2024 national and provincial elections. The same has happened, of course, in KwaZulu-Natal, where the former minister, Jeff Radebe, has now been announced as the leader of that province's restructured leadership. Let's make sense of it all. I'm joined by Samgele Masego, SABC senior political reporter. Good morning to you, Samgele. For a while there, we were wondering what reconfiguration means in the context of the ANC. It was commissioned by the National Executive Committee, and now the National Working Committee has followed through on it. Take us through the details of how we arrived and landed, the chips landed where they landed with these two executive committees.
Very good morning to you, Tulas, and to the listeners. Essentially, these two provinces were reconfigured by the ANC's National Executive Committee under the by the ANC's National Working Committee under the instruction of the National Executive Committee. Essentially, they would have to be disbanded first, or they have been disbanded first, and then they have been reconstructed, because you cannot essentially remove an elected chairperson of a province undemocratically without going to a conference of a province, but you can using Rule 12.2.4 of the ANC Constitution, which would ultimately mean you first disband and then you reconfigure. But ANC leaders are heavily divided on this issue. The meeting with the Gauteng Provincial Executive Committee yesterday at Luchuli House, which was led by the second DSG, Marupin Ramokgopa, and the head of organizing, Mtutuz Manana, and NEC deployee, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, lasted a mere 5 minutes, where Marupin Ramokgopa essentially told the PEC, you are disbanded, you are dissolved as of this moment. You will then, over the weekend, be holding regional general assemblies, where you will then be told, as all the 5 regions of the ANC in Gauteng, who are the interim leaders of the province. The ANC's national officials will this evening conclude those particular lists. But in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban, Nomvula Mokonyane was singing a different tune, basically saying the PEC is not disbanded. It's a reconfiguration. There will be extra hands that will be brought in to help the province. And the ANC's national officials will conclude this particular issue this evening after the budget speech by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Gotongwane. The ANC Secretary General has previously said that this debate has been polarized and factionalized around the divisions heading towards the 2027 conference of the African National Congress.
But quite telling, Samgele, is it not, that the likes of Panyaza Lesufi remain in terms of the reconfigured structure? What does that tell us? And was the same concession brought into play in KwaZulu-Natal, or is that different?
In KwaZulu-Natal, it's different. Siboniso Duma is not the convener of that province. He is essentially the deputy convener. In elected terms, he has now been demoted to a deputy chairperson of the province, a position previously held by Nomakuku Mngadi, who has now been moved and shifted to fundraiser. Then the former premier, Nomusa Dube, has been brought in back to be a deputy coordinator to the political comeback of Michael Ndiema Mabuya Kulu, who is the coordinator of that province. So in KwaZulu-Natal, there is a wholesome and there is a whole change of the entire structure by the ANC's National Executive Committee and National Working Committee, which is pretty much some of the points that have irked the likes of Nomvula Mokonyane, who perceive this reconfiguration in a different manner to what is perceived by some, like the Secretary General of the organization, Fikile Mbalula, who is the custodian of implementing the ANC Constitution as per the guidelines of the ANC's National Conference resolutions and ultimately the party's constitution. But in Gauteng, they could not throw out the baby with the cart in the form of Panyaza Lesufi, because they feel as if Panyaza Lesufi can still be mentored, he can still be shaped and molded in a manner that he resembles the stature of the African National Congress in Gauteng. And he most likely has to thank former President Mbeki, because it was him in the NEC meeting who said that all is not lost in Gauteng. You can still salvage something out of Panyaza Lesufi, so you don't have to throw him away to the curbs, but you just need him to be mentored by a senior leader like Amos Masondo, who has effectively now been brought in to be a co-convener of the province of Panyaza Lesufi. But the people who were ultimately dealt a blow were Nkosi Mtolo, the former provincial secretary of KwaZulu-Natal, and TK Ngwiza, the former provincial secretary of Gauteng, because they were ultimately removed from the secretariat of the organization.
So these secretariats, these two provincial secretaries, completely out. Are you saying not even in the broader structure, the broader reconfigured structure?
There were the murmurs that they may be included in the broader reconfigured structure, but there was an ultimate debate on that particular issue. It was then concluded that no, they will be included in the broader structure, where they will be given some portfolio committee to look at oversight of local government, knowing Nkosi Mtolo was a mayor of Kokstad who also has his own problems, particularly with the SIU investigation in Kokstad. So it essentially tells you that they were given a demotion essentially.
So nothing as powerful as a provincial secretary position. Thank you for that, Samgele Masego, who is a senior SABC News political reporter there.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime list 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford family guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Reigning African champions Banyana Banyana are gearing up to defend their WAFCON title in Morocco. Dr. Ellis and the girls want to deny neighbors Lesotho a moment to shine. But Mehala Dito believe their game plan is too great to stop. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Lesotho, on Saturday, 22 February at 12:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
February may be a short month, but without insurance, your car insurance savings could be big. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you win. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
22 minutes after 7. Today, all attention will be focused on the budget speech, which will be delivered by the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, in Parliament. The Minister will set out how government will balance its ambitions of economic growth amid spiraling debt. Stakeholders from all walks of life have shared their wish list on matters the Minister should prioritize for the budget. So to share the perspective of the ANC then, I am joined by Mdumiseni Ntuli, who is the ANC's Parliamentary Chief Whip. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So last year, and in fact over the last few years, it would seem the focus of the budget was about balancing between developmental priorities on the one hand while ensuring sustainable public finances. But you will have noticed in the last few months the conversation, Mdumiseni, shifting with more pressure being brought to bear by various sectors of society about budget cuts. What do you think should be the approach of the Finance Minister in achieving that fine balance?
Well, good morning to you and good morning to the fellow listeners of SAFM. I mean, I think the first thing that we would like to see in the budget as the ANC is that, as you know, the President delivered the State of the Nation address in which he highlighted the program of government for the next 5 years, so to say, what is contained in the medium-term development plan, with a very ambitious target of growing the economy, at least in the next few years, to closer to 3% or so, which we think is it's an important step in the right direction. So actions will have to be taken at the moment to set the tone, or let me say, to lay the foundation towards the attainment of that goal in the next 3 to 4 years, so to say. But really, the issue, as you would know, we have a major problem in the country of the unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And the view of the ANC has always been that we should approach the budget and look at it as one of the major instruments for income redistribution, which is why we've sustained the argument that there must always be an intervention from the state to caution the poor, who are the most vulnerable in the situation we are today. But we equally want to see some decisive steps taken in terms of the investment into the productive sectors, your agriculture and the manufacturing sector, which, as you know, has been seriously weakened in our country. While those are the sectors that if you revive them and you put them into the right position, they have a potential in terms of huge employment absorption in the country.
So there's a phrase you use there, Mdumiseni Ntuli, that says this should be an instrument for income redistribution or income distribution. But importantly, I want to zone in on you talking about cushioning the poor. Put bluntly, many people feel that the government at the moment, initially when it was led by the ANC up to last year's elections and now under the government of national unity, is not cushioning the poor when budgets such as education, such as the public employment programs, when those budgets are cut, that amounts to a failure to cushion the poor, in your words. Do you believe as the ANC that there should be a fundamental shift from a focus on reducing debt and the cost of servicing debt and focusing on, what are the priorities we need these programs at the moment?
Well, of course, you see, the debt to GDP is quite huge. I think it runs to around 400 billion annually, if I'm not mistaken, or just above that, which remains a major concern because if you have so much money from your fiscus that is servicing the debt, it's problematic in the context of denying you more resources that are required to invest in the economy. So we think that it's important that government must still own up to its own responsibility in terms of addressing the debt. But it's also necessary that even if the debt happens to increase, our view is that the investment must not be directed into the sectors that will not be helpful in terms of, the regeneration of the required revenue for the transformation of our country. So that is why we are still of the view that some work, we need, for instance, we need an investment budget must be directed, among other things, to the SOEs. You see, the government intervened to deal with the ESCOM crisis because we all knew over the past few years that unless you overcome the energy crisis, which was in a way manifesting itself largely through load shedding, you are not going to make an intervention in terms of growing the economy. On the same vein, if you don't address the Transnet crisis at the moment, and you have no easy route in terms of our harbors, especially in Durban, for import and export of our goods, you would not be able to succeed to invest in the economy. So we have heard some voices which are saying these SOEs, leave them, they must collapse, and we don't agree with that because we hold a very firm view as the ANC that we have to strengthen the state.
Yep.
We can't. There are parties in the GNU, for instance, who, in terms of their ideological orientation, would want to see a weak state, where the power is restricted to the private sector and the state is only there for regulation. We don't agree with that as the ANC because when that happens, the poor are going to be the most vulnerable in our country.
But Mr. Ntuli, with due respect, you're not addressing the issue of the impact on the social security net, the provision of such services as basic education, where you have many institutions such as schools, some of them in Gauteng, for example, having their electricity cut off because the account that comes from the provincial government is that we simply don't have the funds. There have been budget cuts where these programs that were hailed as in a way ameliorating the impacts of high unemployment by employing young people and giving them pathways into employment, those are being cut because of budget cuts. I hear your arguments about strengthening the state, but is that even over these priorities?
No, it's not. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea, and I'm sorry that you. Question. It's not a good idea for government to reduce expenditure on the social program, including, for instance, education and health. I mean, you know that we now have this new Bella Act. We would like to see the government putting aside resources towards the implementation of that act, precisely because of what it's intended to achieve. The same thing with the NHI. I mean, you see, there is quite a big problem in the country where you've got too many doctors who are unemployed, who are protesting. Yes. And one of the ways in which we will have to address that issue is when we intervene to deal with a gross imbalance between the investment into the private sector and the money that comes from the state that goes to the private health facilities in our country. There's a gross injustice there, which many people do not want to accept because some of them are beneficial of that system as a source of income. But it's not sustainable. You can't have a country where the majority, the money that goes to the services of the majority in terms of health and education is far less than to what is going to the few who are using the private sector, both in terms of education and health. So it's a gross problem.
Lastly, let me throw in then a question to you about the developments in the ANC and as far as the provincial executives of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal are concerned. It's called reconfiguration, but what is your understanding? Are these two structures disbanded in terms of, the traditional way of dealing with a situation where provincial leadership is considered to be weakened? Do you consider them to be disbanded? And if so, what should be the role of the other leaders? I see the talk about Panyaza Lesufi is one thing, but in KwaZulu-Natal there's talk about the provincial chairperson who was elected as well as the provincial secretary. What is your understanding of where things stand as we speak this morning?
Well, you see, I mean, out of respect of the fact that you have asked a question and by virtue of being a member of the National Executive Committee and NWC, I should have an understanding of what we are doing. I will comment, but I won't go to details because you are talking to the chief whip in this case. You invited the chief whip, not the spokesperson of the ANC. But essentially, at the close of the National Executive Committee a month ago, President gave a summary that said, you will need to act in a way that is in line with the ANC Constitution in terms of how do you handle a process in which you look at the proposals around a dissolution of the structure as well as a proposal on the reinforcement. And what then emerged, which was communicated by the Secretary General, is that to merge the two in the context of the ANC Constitution, the exercise we will undertake is going to be called the reconfiguration of the structures. So what is currently happening now? The NWC met on Monday. The officials are still going to meet, I think, to clean up this and that. I'm sure the SG today or tomorrow, you will be able to give a much more detailed explanation about what exactly is the practical meaning of the decision of the NEC. What are the implications? Exactly what we are asking. What does it mean practically in the context of what the ANC and society is known for in terms of how you deal with the structures at the level below the National Executive Committee.
All right, I've got to thank you. That's a smart politician's answer. That's Mtumiseni Ntuli there, who's the ANC's parliamentary chief whip. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, will protest outside Parliament ahead of the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's first budget speech under the Government of National Unity in Cape Town this afternoon. Standard Bank says risks to the country's fiscus include possible bailouts for state-owned entities and an expansion in social welfare. This follows a recent court ruling that the requirements for the application for the social relief of distress grant were unconstitutional and ordered government to relax them. And Zimbabwe's Foreign Affairs Minister has called for inclusive dialogue among all stakeholders in the DRC. This as the M23 rebels continue to advance. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, heavy backlogging going on Pretoria's M1 North. A crash before Garsfontein and traffic all the way back through to Boerta Avenue. That's a really big queue up of traffic up through the R21 through Rigel and up towards that scene at Garsfontein. Headops River flooded again in Centurion, so Rabi and John Foster closes. Really significant sort of backlogs looping around that. The Mike 1 North, a crash at 11th Avenue, heavy from Ormonde on your way through Joburg to Sandton. Crash on the N3 at Grey Avenue, causing a big delay in from the Straight View side, but everything on account of the weather is just going slowly. Make sure you got plenty of time to get out and get through. Durban, a breakdown, N2 south before Gateway, causing a backlog coming through from Sabaya's side. Higginson Highway out of Chatsworth stays very busy, and Cape Town, a broken down vehicle, N2 inbound at Rappenberg Road. That's causing a delay coming through from Robert Sebukwe, and Marine Drive's worth a mention. It's heavy Sunningdale to Milnerton, then a little gap around the high school, but then you're straight back in the traffic from Milnerton all the way down to Pardon Island. And a crash on your way to Stellenbosch, leaving Somerset West, a collision on the R44 North just before Annandale Road. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So late last night, I saw a social media post from one of my friends. Basically, it had two words: excuses, excuses. I knew that it had to do with Kaizer Chiefs, but you are giving me a bit more detail what it's about. Fatigue comes into play.
Fatigue. That's the F word we are talking today.
They're tired.
There are many other F words, but
They're
we'll go
exhausted.
with...
They're fatigued.
Is that football talk for we got outplayed, outrun and outscored?
I don't know.
Yes. Chiefs head coach Nasruddin Nabi, we're looking at you after he was also disappointed as well as embarrassed. His 10-man team suffered a 4-1 defeat in the Betway Premiership against SuperSport United, missing crucial opportunities as well to narrow the gap in the top 3 teams. Nabi attributed the loss to fatigue.
Si je pouvais changer 6-7 joueurs, j'aurais pu le faire tellement la majorité de l'équipe.
It was not necessarily a tactical change. I noticed that most of the players were not in the game. If I had the chance to substitute 6 or 7 players, I could have done it. And I could see that Moody has given a lot in the previous game, and today already in the early minutes, I could see was not in the game and he was tired. But as I mentioned, if I could change 6 to 7 players, I could have done so.
Let's go to Chippa United, who beat Cape Town City 2-0 at Athlone Stadium. Magesi securing 3 crucial points in their premiership encounter against Polokwane City. 1-0 was their victory at Old Peter Mokaba Stadium. Stellenbosch FC, they grabbed 2 late goals, beating TS Galaxy 3-2, a match that was played at the Mbombela Stadium. Now, Stellenbosch FC goalkeeper Lee Langeveld has stated that their 2 defeats against Kaizer Chiefs in the Betway Premiership have fueled their determination as they prepare to face Amakosi in the Nedbank Cup quarterfinals next month. Sellies are now in the last 8 and the CAF Confed Cup, which Langeveld describes as a successful season.
A successful season for us would be obviously to win the Nedbank Cup. I think we did fairly well to make it to the quarterfinals now for CAF. I don't think many people gave us a chance to even get past the group stage. And then obviously the league, we with 2 games in hand, still I think about 12 league games if I'm not mistaken, if not more. I still feel we can make a top 4, if not the top 3.
Let's look at Lewis Hamilton. Finally now, he says he feels invigorated and full of life following a move to Ferrari as his new car was unveiled in front of 15,000 fans during the 2025 Formula One season launch at London's O2 Arena.
I think the word that I'm thinking of is invigorated, because I feel so full of life and so much energy because everything's new and just focused on what's up ahead. I'm so proud to be a part of the team, something new and exciting for me. So thank you for being here.
I'll be racing to the top of the hour with more sports. For the morning brief, I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Kumba Iron Ore weighing in on what has become a perennial issue, hasn't it, for much of industry, especially those involved in sectors such as, export of iron ore and the likes. What are they saying about concessioning of the iron ore line, the rail line?
That's right, Thulasizwe. They plan to propose to the Department of Transport that iron ore rail line be fully concessioned by a private company. This move aims to address South Africa's ongoing logistics crisis, which has impacted the mining industry. Kumba's CEO Mpumi Zikalala stated that concessioning the rail line would allow for more efficient management and maintenance. The company believes this approach would be more effective than Transnet's current model, which has been plagued by derailments and capacity constraints. Now, the Department of Transport is expected to launch a request for information to gather input on private sector participation in the rail lines. Kumba says it will submit a proposal as part of the Ore Users Forum, emphasizing the need for an integrated approach to managing the 860-kilometer rail line. Zikalala said that Kumba does not intend to be the sole concessionaire and would need to collaborate with other parties with the necessary expertise. Now, the company has conducted external benchmarks to ensure its proposal is viable and looks forward to the RFI process. The announcement comes alongside its results, where earnings plunged 38%. This, of course, on the back of some of those rail issues at Transnet, as well as low iron ore prices.
Tell me about Anglo-American dumping their Brazilian nickel business. What's that about?
Thulas, who knew that a BHBE buyout bid would spark an overhaul at Anglo? I swear every second day there's another announcement from that company. And in its latest move, Anglo says it's selling its nickel business to Hong Kong-listed MMG for up to $500 million. The sale is part of its broader restructuring efforts, which aim to refocus the company on copper and iron ore mining. The nickel business includes 2 ferronickel and 2 greenfield projects in Brazil, producing around 38,000 metric tons of nickel per year. Anglo will receive $350 million upfront, with potential additional payments of up to $150 million. Now, this move is the latest in the Anglo's restructuring strategy, which has included the sale of its coal assets for about $4.9 billion and plans to divest its De Beers diamond unit. The company is also spinning off its platinum unit. Anglo-American Platinum just yesterday said it will pay out a special dividend of $856 million before its demerger.
All right, please give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So let's kick things off in Asia. Markets mixed, mostly in the red this hour. That tech rally we saw at the top of the week seems to be running out of steam, and we are seeing those trade jitters coming back to the table and weighing on sentiment on that front. With that, we are seeing the Japanese Nikkei down just over 0.4%. And then over in Wall Street, futures are in positive territory. Pretty flat, though, as investors on that end await Fed minutes for last month's meeting, where policymakers stood pat on rates. And then coming back home, the mood pretty upbeat ahead of the budget, with the all-share closing 0.75% higher, boosted by gains in the industrial 25, which was up close to 1.3% in yesterday's trading session. Over in the currency front, the rand really stable. It's been stable throughout the week. Stable against the dollar, sitting at about 18-42 to the Greenback.
All right, we'll hear from you a bit later on. That's Ndauleng Lichela there. She'll give you one more update just after 8:30 and also give you a sense of what the day is likely to look like in the markets.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So let's start with the conflict in the DRC. We've been hearing from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. What has the commissioner been saying about Rwanda and the M23 rebels in South Kivu?
Tulas, Jumbo Africa, and a refreshing morning, or what I would say, rainy morning around South Africa. Remember that song, Tulas, it is raining all over, not only Georgia, but South Africa.
Yes.
Tulas, we look at Volker Tech when he's saying that the Rwanda, the M23, remember that this media thing, Tulas, say Rwanda-backed rebels. It is still very questionable. This M23 rebels, the major city, Tulas, the allegations of the killing of children, attacking of hospitals and the warehouse. The UN representative of the Human Rights Commission, Thulas, emphasizing the issues that the Human Rights Council early this month have launched an investigation into atrocities, rapes and killings that are summarily being executed by both forces since the beginning of the year. Bukavu, as you know, Thulas, has got almost 1.3 million people, and also coming from Bukavu, there are rumors that they are entering the third city now, Butembo, and children are also having access to weapons, Thulas. Hence, we have this confrontation between the M23 rebels and the young child soldiers in the eastern DRC.
So in the Horn of Africa, tell me about these talks that are being held outside of any of the countries in the Horn of Africa, but actually being held in Turkey. Turkey playing a bit of a peacemaker role between Ethiopia and Somalia.
Remember, and it is all about Somaliland question, Thulas, of last year, that Ankara, as it is engaging, the Foreign Affairs Ministry engaging what they said. Yesterday, it was just a first round of technical talks between Ethiopia and Somalia around the issues around the recognition of Somaliland, which also seceded from Somalia in 1994, but is not recognized by both the AU and the United Nations. Now, this issue also of Somalia and Ethiopia, Thulas, we know very well that it has been simmering for some time in terms of the threats of the closing of the borders, the issues of recalling of diplomats, but also it is concerning why Turkey has to mediate when actually Africa has all mediation skills that they can deal with in the whole of Africa.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about Liberia, Barbados, and the whole conversation around reparations. It's been brought front and center by the leaders of these two countries, Barbados and Liberia. Tell me why and what exactly are they saying about reparations?
I thought it's very important, post the AU summit, the 38th summit, that when we go into the theme, we need to unpack it and mask it to the listeners to say, Liberia, Joseph Boakai, was his first major speech before the AU. He had to commit that when you think of Liberia, it was a place of transatlantic slavery. You are talking about the slavery that they have went through, and he's calling that there are historical deep scars of the colonial past. But he says, when you talk of reparation, it's beyond financial remedy, but we need to look at issues of reconciliation and healing. When you look at the Prime Minister of Barbados, very sharp from Bristol, Mia Mutli, raising the question also to us of the political and economic inequalities that we have in the geopolitics or in the global politics, and how the African continent, it is high time that they must engage on these issues of reparations as well as healing in the African diaspora. I think this was very important messages that came from the two heads of state, both coming from Liberia and the African diaspora.
In Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa's predecessor didn't seem to have any regard for for term limits. There were no term limits, but it seems Mnangagwa himself is saying he wants to carve out a different path for himself.
Yeah, yesterday, George Charamba had to call all the media journalists to say, engage with Dambuzo Mnangagwa. And the first question that came was around these two-term limits. That is, will he extend it beyond 2028? And he said that people should not push him because it will be the leadership of the party that will elect his successor. But I think what was important to us is that this media briefing of yesterday was also important to cover on issues of economy, politics, media, international affairs, and how Zimbabwe is dealing with those issues, particularly as the chair of SADC, Thulas. How are they handling the question of Eastern DRC? How they handle the question of Mozambique? Because for me, I think when you have one-on-one as a journalist with the president, you don't just focus on the term limit, but to get into the socio-economic issues and the bread and butter issues that affect Zimbabwe.
I hear you, Sipho, but you know when you know that there's a campaign to say to the man, stay on, and he's been consistent, at least in public, to say, I will not be convinced to stay on. Lastly,
remember, you cannot give Chiwenga that sickness, you know. You can't give Chiwenga that sickness. You have to keep it mum and secretive as the crocodile.
Absolutely. Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, February 1990 was generally a time of, many changes and transformation in the country. Tell me what happened on the 19th of February that year.
34 years ago, the founding president and the late president, Thulasizwe Nelson Mandela, was issued his first passport just 8 days following his release from 27 years of Robben Island imprisonment. They made a mistake also in his passport, Thulas, by the name, they wrote Rolisa, not Rolishasha. So that's what it has happened. But let me take you back. 1962, he was also given the passport by Emperor Haile Selassie, classified as a journalist under the name David Motamai. So his exile passport in 1962, he had a pseudo name that was David Motamai, but 1990, he got this one of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, not Rolihlahla, Thulas. People who are in Home Affairs, they sometimes tell people saying names very bad. Thank you, SAFM, observing the Black History Month.
Well, I believe the people at Home Affairs will tell you that they've since come a long way from those days. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update here on The Morning Brief.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust Outsurance.
Switching to Outsurance has definitely saved me money. 2,107 rands per month. I would recommend Outsurance to all business owners because they will definitely save money. With Outsurance, you always get something out.
For your business insurance, contact Outsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Borussia Dortmund and FC Union Berlin are both searching for a decent position in the top half. They have a big battle for maximum points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Dortmund FC versus FC Union Berlin on Saturday, 22 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. The constant rain causing flooding problems now widespread across Centurion. John Foster and Arabi is currently closed. That was closed yesterday and still closed this morning. That's due to the significant flooding coming along the Henops River. We're also getting reports of quite extreme flooding on the R101, the Old Joburg between Raimta and Vreda. Also Littleton Road between Old Joburg Road and Clubview as well. So a particularly tough morning for motorists around Centurion, negotiating all that flooding. Earlier crash on the M1 North up by Garsfontein Road on the N1 going north has been clear, but there's a stationary vehicle there now as well, so still a lot of pressure on the M1 from Centurion up into Pretoria this morning. Joburg's highways all very busy. Giving examples, the N1 from 14th Avenue to Rivonia, N3 Germiston to Buccleuch. The Mike one this morning, or Monday, up to a crash up by 11th Avenue in the Kaladi area, N12 in from Benoni through to Boksburg. It's all just generally very busy. And our advice remains, go as early as you possibly can. Pretty widespread flooding across parts of Mpumalanga as well. Emerladi to Middelburg on the old road, the 555, the N4 in central. Emerladi has some flooding. Middelburg, Hendrina on the N11 under some water as well. So take it easy at any of those routes and others that you may come across. Durban, there's a breakdown into South at Gateway. Very heavy, pushing back a queue towards the Sabaya exit if you're coming in from the airport. That's a big queue to work through. The M7 from Queensborough up into Pinetown's dreadful this morning, and Cape Town heavy pressure both ways on the N7 north and southbound into Bosman's Dam Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The giants of French rugby, Bordeaux Peclet and Clermont Auvergne, are fighting for a massive victory to cement top 5 positions. This is the top 14. Rugby, the French way. Catch the huge contest between Bordeaux Union Peclet and Clermont Auvergne on Sunday, 23 February at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7 minutes to 8 here on SAFM. The latest quarterly labor force survey has revealed that youth unemployment continues to be a major challenge in this country, with nearly 60% of young people aged between 15 and 24 and nearly 40% of those aged between 25 and 34 being unemployed. Unemployment numbers have doubled over the last decade, and the proportion of young people not in education, employment, or training, the so-called NEETs, and that proportion is increasing. Let's speak now to Nape Sinong, who is the mobilizer strategist at Youth Capital. Good morning to you, Nape. This is right up your alley. This is what you've been campaigning and championing, the issues around youth unemployment and how to address it. So the numbers came out yesterday. It's ahead of the budget speech to be delivered a bit later on today. What did you hear from the numbers around unemployment, youth unemployment, that you believe there's an opportunity to address in the budget speech later on this afternoon?
Good morning to Thulasizwe, and thank you for shining a light on a particular issue that we think is a crisis in the country, which is youth unemployment. From Youth Capital's perspective, the numbers came in, and we think that the numbers reaffirm something that we've always been saying, that like in the country, unemployment is a country, and in the country, unemployment is a crisis, and it's a crisis that affects young people in particular and women in some of the most disproportionate ways than other sections of the population. So the numbers came out, and I think each and every year, people like us from Youth Capital, we come on programs like yours and other programs to talk about how much this is a crisis. And the numbers as they came out, they reaffirm what we've always been saying, that we have a crisis of unemployment, and it affects young people and women the most. And
we will talk about the solutions you are suggesting in a moment, but I want you saying you're talking about each and every year coming onto platforms such as these to raise this issue. Earlier on, I spoke to Zwelinzi Mavavi. His sense is one of frustration with not being given a listening ear to what possible solutions could be brought to bear. What is your experience? Are you finding a listening ear, for instance, in the right quarters, in government, the people that make the decisions around budget policy and the likes?
I think that I concur with Comrade Vavi, because we saw him yesterday at the People's Assembly, People's Budget Assembly, as we, civil society people, gathered at St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town to really table the People's Assembly, Budget Assembly. And there are some instances where I think that we, as civil society and as campaigns like Youth Capital, we do get an ear, but there are some ways where I think we're still hitting a brick wall and we're not getting listened to. For example, Youth Capital has been campaigning and advocating for the return of the teacher assistance program, or what they call the BEI, Basic Education Employment Initiative. We've been in shows like yours many times also. But the fact that we lost 200,000 teaching temporary working opportunities for young people in the previous year because of budget commitments. Treasury has not committed fully to these kind of programs like the Basic Education Initiative that has gotten young people as general assistants and as teacher assistants in schools, we lost 200,000, temporary work opportunities for young people in the previous year, just because those kind of programs do not have the financial commitment that they need, so that they are rolled out in a way that can impact young people. Last year, the program was on hold, and that's where we think that we are hitting brick walls. We welcome, in terms of the skills kind of aspect, we welcome that the new NSFAS board has been appointed, but we also wish for that board to hit the ground running and fix the higher education crisis in the ways that they can, in ways that some of those inefficiencies can be attributed to NSFAS. So there is a lot of moving aspects, I think, when it comes to youth unemployment, and for organizations like ours that we are monitoring and pushing for.
So the public employment programs that you allude to, such as the Basic Education Employment Initiative, get a lot of flack where people say that, well, those are not jobs, those are not permanent jobs, those are temporary, and even the pay is not significant. What's your view in terms of their usefulness for youth and giving pathways, particularly given your diagnosis, for instance, around the long-term impact of unemployment that, many young people, in your words, then are then considered to be, quote unquote, risky hires the longer that they've remained unemployed?
So we know that a lot of young people in the country are not able to find work because they do not have the relevant work experience that basically sets them up on that path to find meaningful or gainful work later on in life. But a program like the BEI has proven that it can give young people that meaningful first-hand work experience, because a lot of employers would say, I cannot hire you, Thulasizwe, because you do not have work experience. But programs like this, public employment programs like this, they have proven over time that they can give young people meaningful work experience, put money in their pocket while they're still searching for work. I firsthand know a lot of young people that without programs like the BEI, they would have sat, at home and would not have an opportunity to earn money, gain meaningful work experience. But also what these kind of programs do is that they provide a social good, because young people are placed in schools, and particularly now as we go into budget, we know that we are in a time of austerity when people do not, in a time of austerity where public services like education, health, and others are being defunded. So we can, through trying to create employment opportunities, also do a social good. Putting young people into schools, they can assist our already overburdened education system while putting money in their pocket.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Nape Sinong, who is the mobilizer strategist at Youth Capital. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30760. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, SAFTU set to protest ahead of the budget speech and a call for inclusive dialogue in the DRC. Good morning. The South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, will protest outside Parliament ahead of the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's first budget speech under the Government of National Unity in Cape Town this afternoon. SAFTU is calling on the Minister to increase public sector budget, saying over 80% of the population depends on public services. The Labour Federation says it does not want an anti-poor budget. SAFTU's spokesperson Newton Masuku says the protest serves to put the needs of the working class under the spotlight.
At the core of the theme of this year's protest, we are saying they must end austerity. We are opposed to austerity. As I have said, about 87% of the population depends on public health care system. and then the nurse to patient ratio, the doctor to nurse ratio is such that it's impracticable for those professionals to render services to the public because they do not have sufficient funding from the National Treasury. The same is applicable to education, applicable to home affairs, applicable to policing, and so forth and so on. So you can't, on the one hand, say you want to build a capable state while continuing to cut budget in pursuit of primary budget surplus.
COSATU and various organizations, including the SACP, Nahau and Youth Capital in the Western Cape, are also expected to march against budget cuts. They have reiterated their rejection of reduction in funding departments such as education and health. The organizations say the cuts have led to staff shortages and inadequate delivery of basic services. The Western Cape Education Department announced in August last year that about 2,400 teachers would be cut from its payroll due to a nearly 4 billion rand budget shortfall. Meanwhile, Standard Bank says risks to the country's fiscus include possible bailouts for state-owned entities and an expansion in social welfare. This follows a recent court ruling that the requirements for the application for the Social Relief of Distress Grant were unconstitutional and ordered government to relax them. Standard Bank anticipates that an increase in household consumption and fixed investment will support the local economy's forecast 1.8% growth this year. Gulam Bolim is a chief economist at the bank.
But we have taken into account that if you were to double the number of beneficiaries receiving the social wage, it would add another 33 billion rand per year from this year in today's money to the overall fiscus. If you had to add another 100 rand to the stipend that social welfare beneficiaries are garnering, our sense is it could add up to 100 billion rand to the fiscus. So these are very significant items that needs to be considered. We've also opened our minds to the very recent suggestion by Transnet that they may need 50 billion rand over 3 years.
Zimbabwe's Foreign Affairs Minister Amon Murwira has called for inclusive dialogue among all stakeholders in the DRC. This as the M23 rebels continue to advance. They've captured the towns of Goma and Kamanyola. Fears are mounting that they will soon capture Uvira city. Last month, 14 South African soldiers were killed in fighting between the rebellies and the Congolese military. Murwira has echoed the African Union's call for political engagement.
What we are promoting is peace, because from peace you can bring development. And what has been the approach? In the past, there was state-to-state negotiation and peace negotiation. We have expanded this to state and non-state negotiation.
And finally, Brazil's chief prosecutor has recommended the former President Jair Bolsonaro be charged with attempting a coup. This after he was defeated in the 2022 presidential election. Bolsonaro has denied any wrongdoing, saying he's a victim of political persecution. The BBC's Ayon Wells reports.
After Jair Bolsonaro lost the 2022 election to the now left-wing President Lula da Silva, his supporters stormed government buildings in the capital, Brasilia. 3 months ago, the federal police released a report accusing Mr. Bolsonaro of also playing a lead role in planning and organising an attempted coup. The document charging Mr. Bolsonaro says the responsibility for acts that were harmful to democratic order lies with a criminal organisation led by Mr. Bolsonaro himself. In practice, this means legal proceedings are beginning and Mr. Bolsonaro will likely face a trial.
Recapping the top story, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, will protest outside Parliament ahead of the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's first budget speech under the Government of National Unity in Cape Town this afternoon. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Love is in the air, but there could be some great car insurance savings for you too. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you win. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Without insurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Lots of flooding moving into the Tshwane region, as would be expected after so much rain. 3 days of it pretty constantly. Arpies River is flooding. That'll probably close Flower between Paul Kruger and Eskia Pathleli. It's likely to just keep you on those routes. There's also a crash coming into Pretoria on Paul Kruger in towards the CBD, so that's heavy. Widespread flooding across Centurion, affecting parts of, basically along the Hennops River. So parts of Littleton Road are affected. The old Joburg Road up by Ramet is affected. Rabi and John Foster's closed. Blackwood is closed. N Street is closed. So it's just some significant backlogging going around those closures on the routes that remain open, but be careful out that way, please. The highways around Joburg, just all very busy. We've been warning this morning to go as early as you possibly can. Lots of flooding around Emerlafleni, both on the N4 and the old Emerlafleni Middleburg Road. Pretty deep flooding on the N11 between Middleburg and Hendrina. So those northern provinces. Oh, and I forgot to add the big flooding on the Brits Road, the 511 Brits through to Beesterkraal. So those northern provinces where it's been raining, there are obviously some mobility issues. Durban, taking forever to clear a breakdown on the N2 South going in towards Mslanga. It's very heavy as you drive in from the airport side this morning. Cape Town, Baden-Powell, still closed at the bottom of Khayelitsha. That's due to thick sand on the carriageway. And if you're on your way into Stellenbosch this morning, the R44 still with a crash before Annandale, and then some heavy delays up from Jamestown into the central Stellenbosch area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's cricket. The Proteas bowling coach Anton Roux has unveiled the strategy for the ICC Champions Trophy taking place in Pakistan. And in soccer, Nazruddin Nabi apologizes to Kaizer Chiefs fans. We'll have all these stories and more around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, folks. We are into the third hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. It's just gone 9 minutes after 8. So we've put a lot of issues on the agenda for you this morning, right? And I look forward to engaging with you. But I wanted to just add one or two. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be in conversation with Laduma Ngokolo, and we'll be talking about the counterfeiting of local high-end fashion designer fashion, such as the brand Maxhosa. So he's the designer and founder of Maxhosa. Recently, there have been these interactions between Ngokolo and others within the fashion design space to try and push back against counterfeiting. So look out for that conversation, but also do weigh in on it and its impact on local brands and the job creation, tax revenue collection, and the likes. What enables the counterfeiting and what creates this market for counterfeit goods? And you can then weigh in. You can weigh in on that conversation. Feel free to give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. That's the one issue I wanted to add on the agenda. The second one, I don't know if you saw the briefing by the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, yesterday. It was extraordinary in many ways. It was ordinary in many ways, but also extraordinary at the same time. The part that I'm talking about in particular has to do with his response to organizations such as Sakeleche, is it? Yeah, Sakeleche, who were accusing him of basically becoming the new czar of triple BEE and pushing it hard within the agricultural space. Did you hear John Steenhuisen's response, citing those aspects of the Constitution, Section 9, subsection 2, that I always allude to without the level of detail to which he went yesterday, and basically saying that only a person who's not rational would not see that we have a problem in as far as the Gini coefficient and the inequality in this country, and making the argument that these measures are actually ordered by the Constitution, and therefore, as far as they apply, in his portfolio, he will implement them, but also emphasizing that he's not looking to have quotas, a sort of tick box exercise. He's looking for a bottom-up approach to empowerment within the agricultural sector. Yeah, so if you saw that, I wonder what you made of it all. It's not language that you would naturally associate with John Steenhuisen. But there you have it. He was pushing back hard against these organizations, particularly as it relates to the importance of the tariffs that are statutory within his portfolio to drive, among others, the issue of empowerment of small-scale farmers. So those are some of the issues I thought I would add. The number to dial, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Whether you're having a early, snoozy, tantrumy, chill, frustrating, or jokey morning. Mornings love McDonald's, so choose happy and enjoy a Burry Burger Double and a short filter coffee for only R39.90 from 6 to 10:30 a.m. at McDonald's.
The giants of French rugby, Bordeaux and Clermont Auvergne, are fighting for a massive victory to cement top 5 positions. This is the top 14. Rugby, the French way. Catch the huge contest between Bordeaux Union Bergler and Clermont Auvergne on Sunday, 23 February at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032. You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Yeah, let's take some of your calls now. Let me start with Nhlanhla in KZN. Good morning to you, Nhlanhla. You want to talk to me about the conversation I had earlier on with Zwelinze Mavavi of SAFTU?
Yes, my brother, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
You see, my brother, Mr. Vavi has said something important when he said that we've got a government that doesn't listen. And that brought me to a question, why are we still voting for politicians who don't want to listen to their people and also don't want to listen the representative or of the same people or must I say the workers. Because Mr. Thulasizwe, the politicians, what they do, they just they took money and enrich themselves. Because because we keep on complaining about issues, and then they will say we are going to have a meeting to discuss issues. Like there is no strategic planning, strategic plans that are already in place to take care of any issues that get to arise. First. No, not that first. Our politicians, they must look at their armpits and see that the problem comes from them.
Gotcha.
With the willpower to take care
All right.
of their own.
Nhlanhla, thank you for that. And of course, don't forget the power that is in your hands then, Nhlanhla, in terms of the choices that you make. Having read the situation that the way that you have read it, what do you then do about it when you get to election time, when you get to the polls, to make the statement that you make about politicians who don't listen to the people? Chris in Pietermaritzburg, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about unemployment?
Yes, youth unemployment in particular.
Yes.
It is just evidence of policy crisis that we have in the country. A country with a median age of 27 years, but its policies are not geared towards youth. And today's budget policy statement really is going to be telling us if government wants to change the trajectory. This time around, the government of national unity, there are very quick things that they can do. We have complained about infrastructure. President said there's going to be 940 billion over the next 3 years. He must announce where that money is going to cut from. They're going to cut the Blue Light Brigade are going to cut their packs. Are they going to cut waste? Is it going to attack wastages by government department head on and ensure that there is efficiency in the state so that people deliver and there's value for each cent that is given them? And I really think this is a creation of a crisis that is going to be faced. Young people are going to rise very soon and are not going to stand for what is happening. We can't be spending so much on social wage. I'm not saying it's not enough, but these are employable young people who need to be making money and carrying the country towards growth. Lastly, your interview with Dumseni. Dumseni says we need to invest in productive economy. If you look at the medium-term budget statement, that's not where the government is going. So it shows, once again, the policy crisis. So really, who develops government policy if it's not the ruling ANC?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that, Chris. And of course, you will acknowledge that it is now even more complex with the number of parties that are represented in the coalition government, the government of national unity, and them, each one of them having some kind of an interest that they would want to see reflected, particularly to also appease their own constituencies and the likes, but also to contribute to national progress. But it has become even more complex now in terms of the planning and prioritizing where to spend in as far as the budget is concerned. Charlie in Durban, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about Eskom and illegal connections?
Yes, Thulas. You know, what doesn't make sense to me, I've never heard any of the way to the CEO, I've never heard any of them, speak about increasing capacity where there's illegal connections. Because if they can't deal with illegal connections, then they must find another way. And the best option is to increase capacity in terms of either the power station or the transformers that are feeding directly to those areas.
I did hear that when Charlie, the point you're making absolutely crucial. I did hear that in the hearings. I think it was the bit that I caught was City Power, where they were outlining what they are doing to improve their infrastructure, including substations and the likes, because load reduction, the concern is about that particular aspect.
Well, that is wonderful then, because it's not good that people who would be affected are those paying consumers, and now they're being punished for something that is being done by other people, and they've got no control over those people.
Yeah. So is it your view then that because you don't seem to be able to solve this issue of illegal connections, increase the capacity of the substations and the likes, such that you don't end up with people being disadvantaged in this way?
100%.
All right. Thank you for that call. That call there coming through from Charlie in Durban. Let me just take one or two of your voice notes. Let's see. I've gotten a few that have to do with the situation of load reduction that we were talking about earlier on in light of the South African Human Rights Commission's hearings into load reduction. So let me take one or two of them.
Thulas, good morning. I think Minister Ramokgopa and Eskom found a convenient excuse, considering that the people that are busy load reducing from in the rural areas. Now you need to look at the suburban areas where there's a lot of these backyard dwellers because of the colleges that are in and around the suburbs. So perhaps they need to go back to the drawing board and think of a better excuse. Thank you very much.
Atang, thank you for that. Well, their argument is that actually it's more prevalent, this issue of illegal connections and non-payment in townships and informal settlements. But you're absolutely right, it does affect, load reduction areas in rural areas. Let me take another one also to do with load reduction.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. It's Robert in Jimistin. I think the load reduction is because of municipality poor service delivery all these years, and the government failed to provide what it promised to the people of South Africa. I thank you.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. There is an element of what the municipality could be doing around, as was suggested a few minutes ago, around the infrastructure, so that the infrastructure is able to cope even as you try and deal with illegal connections. One more, and then we'll move on from here.
Good morning, Tulas and SAFM listeners. Tulas, we've got 3 types of people using electricity in this country. We've got illegal connection. We've got legally people connected with meters, but they are none buying from Eskom. Where are they buying their electricity? And you've got those that are buying from Eskom. Those that are not buying from Eskom, where do they get the units to use? Thanks, it's Anonymous and Gauteng.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those 3, especially that category that buys electricity, but not from the official Eskom accredited vendors. That is a big problem that Eskom has been dealing with. And in fact, I believe some time ago we reported that among the avenues that they're exploring is the possible complicity of some Eskom employees themselves in undercutting the system and ensuring that it's undermined the integrity of those electricity tokens, such that you have a market of people that are able to buy electricity outside of the regulated system. So quite a great deal of concern there. One of the many avenues through which Eskom is making losses as far as the sales of electricity are concerned. Thank you for that. We'll make time and continue to engage with you a bit later on here on The Morning Brief.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So let's bring you this story now. The Gauteng Finance MEC, Lebogang Maile, says government must collaborate with local designers and organizations to protect the country's fashion industry from the growing threat of counterfeit products. Maile's remarks follow a meeting with prominent fashion designer Laduma Ngokolo and representatives from the Alliance Against Counterfeit, where stakeholders discussed strategies to combat counterfeiting. Laduma Ngokolo, who is the designer and founder of Maxhosa, joins me now to take the conversation forward. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So that meeting followed a few days where we had seen some videos trending on social media where one of your designs, which we're told goes for some 24,000 rand at the official outlets, but was being sold for 80 rand on the streets. I don't know the authenticity of that story, but just tell me from your perspective, how deep is the problem of counterfeiting and how hard is it hitting your brand in particular?
Good morning, Mr. Simelane. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show. Problem with the counterfeit industry in South Africa is something that has always been there, but mainly it is been a problem that has been affecting international fashion brands, from your sports brands to luxury brands, but unfortunately in the past couple of years it has come down to us, to affecting us local fashion designers, and mainly because we've built a form of aspiration and sort of demand, and therefore because the trend is changing, counterfeit culprits are now looking internally in South Africa for victims. The problem is deep. The problem is very steep, especially in Gauteng, of course, is where majority of these trades happen, and hence when I tweeted, I also tagged MEC Maile, and of course you do find this problem in scattered outskirts of South Africa, in major cities and rural areas. It is something that has spread out more than our distribution power. Of course, I'm not trying to say
yes.
As an entrepreneur, as a designer, I think I'm addressing it to society to look into it. Like they stood with food counterfeits, I think the case should be the same with textiles and fashion, because it affects the job industry.
Yeah.
I, as an entrepreneur, if I didn't have the love that I have for my country and for my people, I wouldn't even have considered manufacturing in South Africa. I would have gone to China, like a lot of brands do, and a lot of chain stores in South Africa do. There's a higher profit margin to extract from that business, but we wake up and make sacrifices because we know very well that hundreds of people wake up and go to work because of the efforts that we put in.
So in your assessment, what is enabling this level of counterfeiting, particularly of fashion and designs such as yours? What in the regulatory environment is lacking that's making it possible to counterfeit your goods and sell them for cheap on the sides of the road?
In my opinion, and I speak as Laduma, I think it's recklessness within SARS customs, because these goods literally come from the Durban seaport, Cape Town seaport, PE seaport. It comes from air freight. Some of these people literally go to our stores, buy a sample, fly out to China, and then procure production, and then come back carrying some of those products that they've procured. Counterfeit is an open trade in South Africa, so to say, to a point where it has become a multi-million rand, if not billions of rand industry. And therefore, I'm not speaking on behalf of the alliance.
Yes.
I'm speaking as an entrepreneur. And I planted the seed of the idea of an alliance where local designers come together as one voice to go and approach stakeholders of the government and approach the people. But I'm not involved in the alliance. I got together a couple of designers and IP specialists to administrate an organization that is a non-profit that would help people have a voice in order to combat this issue that we found ourselves in.
Yeah. So the MEC Lebogang Maile is suggesting that there should be a collaboration and a working together with local designers and organizations to protect the fashion industry. In your mind, what does that look like? What does that collaboration look like, such that you don't only address the lower level traders who trade as problematic as they can be in the process, but you also address it at the level at which perhaps it's more systematic and more coordinated?
I think the collaboration would, of course, make a great impact in getting the information out there. But I think the best collaborator is the people, because it is the people that have created, that are fueling the demand. The more people out there in South Africa want such products, is the more the suppliers will provide to the market. So I think that people need to know that they have an opinion and a choice when it comes to such. Even though I think, for example, in countries like France, they've implemented strategies because they want to protect their luxury industry. Give you an example, Louis Vuitton employs about 20,000 people just as a brand globally, and majority of those people are in France. There should be a huge concern if your Edcon loses jobs and because there is a counterfeit conglomerate that is going against their products. Of course, IDC will try to fight that along with Edcon and various other organizations. The message that I'm trying to put forward is that we don't have to wait until the problem escalates to a huge problem that is not even possible to control.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you for that. That's Laduma Ngxokolo, who is a fashion designer and the founder of the brand Maxhosa. They're addressing issues to do with counterfeiting and the extent to which it affects the industry and job creation in South Africa. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us in the headlines. South Africans have mixed expectations to the Finance Minister Ino Godongwana's 2025 budget policy statement in Cape Town this afternoon. They include some economists who have painted a bleak picture of the country's economic future. And various organizations, including Labour Federation, SAFTU and COSATU, will protest outside Parliament ahead of the first budget speech under the Government of National Unity. And Zimbabwe's Foreign Affairs Ministers called for inclusive dialogue among all stakeholders in the DRC. This as the M23 rebels continue to advance. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, as you would expect after 3 days of rain, some rivers across Gauteng are badly swollen and overflowing and resulting in road closures. Flower Street that links Eskia and Pathlele through to Capital Park, Paul Kruger, that's being closed. That is flooding at the Arpies, and there's a lot of congestion around there. Centurion, routes around the Henops River are also flooded. There's flooding on the Old Joburg Road, by Vreda Road, flooding on Littleton Road between Old Joburg and the N14. Blackwood Road is closed, is closed. Rabi and John Foster also closed. There's a lot of traffic sort of looping around, sort of a circular route around the sort of closures, but it is very slow in that Centurion area. Staying that way, the N14's heavy. This is the Krugersdorp Highway coming up towards the Brockfontein interchange on your way towards Pretoria. Midrand is horrible. Olifantsfontein, Old Joburg Road and associated routes, both sides of the highway. It's traffic lights and flooding issues out that side this morning. Joburg, the Mike 1, Boyston through to Santon, really heavily backed up today. It's a lot of go-slow traffic through the wet weather conditions. Durban, problems in from the airport, a crash and a breakdown between Sabaya and Gateway, and a crash on the alternative M4 at Virginia Airport, causing delays Durban bound as well. Collision N2 north at Umgeni Road, traffic heading up through Spaghetti Junction in towards that is badly backed up. And Cape Town, the N7 north heavy from Goodwood up to Bosselmansdam Road, and the M3 still quite slow. Constantia right through to UCT. Extra traffic on that route this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you once again. So ahead of this ICC Champions Trophy, we've been hearing from the bowling coach, the Proteas bowling coach, Anton Roux. What is he saying about the condition of the pitches in Pakistan?
Well, apparently the Proteas bowlers are sweating.
Yeah.
Not just because of the weather, but because it's such a flat pitch and it almost feels like you are bowling with a deflated soccer ball. I think Kaizer Chiefs fans will know what that feels like.
Yeah, I'm not showing up for that invitation. You're on your own. Get in trouble on your own.
All right, here we go. Let's get into this story. The Proteas bowling coach backing Lungi Ngidi to some good despite the recent struggles ahead of South Africa's Champions Trophy campaign. Roux says Pakistan's flat pitches making life difficult for fast bowlers with little improvement on offer. But he does believe Ngidi's variation will be key in the tournament. The Proteas are also without Andrik Nokia, adding extra pressure on the attack. Let's hear from the Proteas bowling coach, Anton Roux.
Flat pitches, it's just how you perceive it. I think, we want to see it as a challenge. With the addition of the guys coming in after the Tri-Series, there's not only expertise, but there's a lot of experience that comes with that. One thing I do know on these pitches is that it's going to take a concerted team effort, not just with the ball, but also with the bat and of course, in the field.
Let's go to soccer. Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nasruddin Nabi expressing disappointment after his 10-man team suffered a 4-1 defeat against SuperSport United at FNB Stadium last night. This marks the largest defeat for Chiefs in the Betway Premiership this season, and they missed a crucial opportunity to narrow the gap with the top 3 teams. Nabi attributed the loss to fatigue.
Si je pouvais changer 6-7 joueurs, j'aurais pu le faire tellement. La majorité de l'équipe.
It was not necessarily a tactical change. I noticed that most of the players were not in the game. If I had the chance to substitute 6 or 7 players, I could have done it. And I could see that Moody has given a lot in the previous game. And today, already in the early minutes, I could see was not in the game and he was tired. But as I mentioned, if I could change 6 to 7 players, I could have done so.
Now, the FIFA goalkeeping coaching instructor Alejandro Heredia says while Africa has a lot to offer in terms of quality goalkeepers, the only downfall is the lack of development at a young age. Now, he spent the last 2 years looking for 2 FIFA goalkeeper instructors on the African continent, and we had one from Tunisia and the other being the long-serving Banyana goalkeeper coach Cameron Cox, who Heredia says he is excited to have a fellow South African as a FIFA goalkeeper instructor.
our monitoring, he was really doing very well. This is one of the reasons why I have been invited and to be there. And the idea is to conducting courses, follow the FIFA structures. He have to present the courses to the goalkeeper coaches around the continent. And saying that have him in South Africa is a privilege, because imagine we have the person directed just next door. You can call in one telephone call away, and Cameroon can really assist and help goalkeeping in South Africa tremendously.
And finally, tennis. The world number one, Aryna Sabalenka, beat qualifier Veronika Kudermetova 6-3, 6-4 to begin her Dubai campaign. And Matteo Berrettini dumping Novak Djokovic out of the Qatar Open 7-6, 6-2. That's a wrap of your morning brief sport. John Hedeker will be up with no unforced errors from here at around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Hey, Ndauling, good morning to you once again. So we've been hearing from Stats South Africa with the unemployment rate, and there was a slight improvement as far as that is concerned.
Nothing to be really happy about,
Yeah.
but yes, of course, a slight improvement, with the jobless rate falling to 31.9% in the fourth quarter from 32.1% in the previous quarter. This comes as 132,000 new jobs were created during the period, bringing the total number of employed individuals to 17.1 million. Meanwhile, the number of unemployed people decreased by 20,000 to 8 million. Zooming in on the print, provincial unemployment rates varied, with the Northwest recording the highest expanded unemployment rate of 52.8%, followed by the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga. In contrast, the Western Cape had the lowest rate at 24.8%. Now, the formal sector accounted for about 68.4% of total employment, with 11.7 million jobs. The informal sector, private households, and agriculture accounted for 19.5%, 6.7%, and 5.4% of employment, respectively. Job increases were mainly recorded in the finance and manufacturing industries, which accounted for 232,000 jobs and 41,000 jobs, respectively. While the decline in unemployment is encouraging, economists warn that the rate still remains high, particularly among the youth and Black South Africans. And to address this, there have been calls for accelerated economic reforms, increased infrastructure rollout, and financial support for SMMEs. Probably something we'll hear about in today's budget.
Yeah, speaking of the budget in Dowling, of course, there's that big issue of where the revenue will come from to fund all of the expenditure that we are all, making wish lists about. We've been hearing at the same time from the South African Revenue Service, the tax collector, saying that raising taxes, it's basically not such a great idea.
It isn't, because we already have a tax base that is under pressure. The SARS Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, emphasizing the importance of improving tax administration over increasing tax rates to boost revenue collection. And this comes as revenue collections are projected to come in lower in today's budget. Now, he cautioned that relying on tax hikes could have negative economic consequences, citing the 2017 VAT increase as an example. Now, at an Alan Gray webinar, Kieswetter noted that an estimated 800 billion rands in taxes remains uncollected annually, and that improving tax administration could yield greater revenue benefits. He also warned against targeting wealthy individuals with tax increases, as this could lead to reduced tax compliance and decreased investment. Instead, Kieswetter advocating for better administration of tax affairs for wealthy individuals. In the upcoming budget, experts predict limited room for tax rate hikes, with possible increases in sin taxes, fuel levies, and personal income tax through what they call the bracket creep.
All right, lastly, Dowling, what kind of a trading day can we look forward to in the markets here at home and elsewhere in the world?
The local markets will probably start the day mixed, traders tracking international action while eyeing the national budget being tabled by Minister Korongwana this afternoon. That budget likely to also influence the local units, and ahead of it, the rand making gains this hour at 18.38 to the dollar from about 18.40 an hour ago. Looking at U.S. markets, futures are in the green. Investors on that front also playing a wait-and-see game ahead of the Fed minutes. And then over in Asia, stocks on track to end the day mixed as the tech rally we saw at the top of the week starts running out of steam.
Always right on the money. That's Ntauleng Lechela. Thank you for that, Ntauleng. Ntauleng has kept you updated on business, the markets, and the economy over the last 3 hours here on the Morning Brief.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than you microwaving your leftovers. Realizing they're still cold? Giving them a second chance. Realizing they're still cold? And eating them anyway. Because you've already committed to it. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. Super Sports Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The Super Sports Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. Super Sports Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's bring you the story that, the idea came from one of our listeners yesterday calling in and saying we should focus a little bit on this story around the football team known as Royal AM. You will have heard the South African Revenue Service is set to sell the Premier Soccer League club, Royal AM, the club owned by the embattled businesswoman Shaun Mkhize. The club, which has a troubled history, including mounting debts, player disputes, and poor league performance, has been seized by SARS due to Mkhize's alleged tax liabilities of around 40 million rand. Let's bring in Nkululeko Nkewu, who is the co-founder of Idiski Media. Good morning to you, Nkululeko, and thank you for your time. I look at the table. Some teams like Polokwane City and TS Galaxy are now standing at about 18 games played. Then at the bottom of the table, you see Royal AM with 11 games played. It would be great for them if these were games in hand, but that's not quite the situation. What on earth is going on with Royal AM?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning to your listeners as well. I think in your introduction to this topic, you've pretty much given the good summary of what's happening from a legal perspective and with SARS and what's happening with Shaun Mkhize and the football club. They asked, I think, initially they asked the Premier Soccer League to stop their matches. They started with the reserve league. It's called the DSTV Diski Challenge. Eventually, at some point, that I think they were either expelled or their matches were just cut off permanently. So even in the reserve league, where their young players, under 20, under 21 players, were supposed to play to get some game time against other teams in the Premier Soccer League, that was cut off. So that means it left the league with 15 teams, and the DSTV Diski Challenge to continue. And then it happened with the senior team, maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago, where they couldn't fulfill one fixture against Chippa United. And I remember that Chippa Mbengesi was unhappy with that because it kind of happened abruptly, that they were supposed to play the game, and then Chippa were told that you're not playing the game, and Chippa Mbengesi was asking for explanation. Why are we not playing the game? And then I think the next game would have been Orlando Pirates. And then as they were about to play that game, maybe on a Thursday, the PSL then was forced into putting out a statement to say, up until Royal AM come and explain to us as the PSL Executive Committee as to why they can't honor their fixtures, we will not be able to allow them to play the matches. And this is when, of course, it was uncovered that there was problems with South African Revenue Services. As it stands now, as you gave in your introduction, the context, the league is not finite. It's finite. It's not infinite. Like, there is not too many number of weeks in which you have to play your games. If everyone else has finished their games and you have to fulfill your Nedbank Cup fixtures plus your league matches, that has to be squeezed in between now and May. The more this goes on without any clarity from the league or Royal AM, the more it becomes very difficult for us to see the ending of the situation. How are they going to do it when we have less than 2 months perhaps towards the end of the league? So it's becoming very, very difficult the more the days go on.
It's quite the conundrum, isn't it, Nkululeko, in that it's unprecedented. I don't know if the rules, for instance, of football and FIFA cover this scenario. When we played amateur football, if the other team didn't show up, you simply kickstart the game and one person would roll it over the line and score a goal and would take the 3 points and happily walk away. But this kind of disruption is something that I imagine is not really with any precedent and not covered by the rules, is it?
It's a very complex issue because it happened actually to Royal AM when they were playing playoffs. It was a playoff between Chippa United, Royal AM, and I think Richards Bay. And Richards Bay, that's when they earned their promotion to the league. Royal AM decided in that moment, I think 2.5 years ago, that we have a court case ongoing to determine or dispute the winner of the National First Division. At the time, it was Sekhukhune. 2, 3, 4 years ago, Royal AM decided not to play those playoff matches. It would have been 3 fixtures for each team or 4 fixtures for each team. And the other teams went to the stadium to kick, as you are describing, to kick the ball to win matches against a Royal AM which chose not to participate in those matches. And they lost, actually, in that instance. With this one, it's a little bit more complex because it's not as if Royal AM decided not to honor their fixture. There was a point, even their general manager, Richard Makoba, went on a perhaps media campaign to give the impression that they are fine. It is only the league that's not allowing them to play the matches. They were giving that impression to say, we are ready, our players are back in training, there's no longer any payment issues, but the PSL did not allow that. Now, had they been allowed, it would have meant that the teams would have gone to the stadium perhaps and not find Royal AM there, and then those 3 points would have been given. In amateur football and within the SAFA statutes, we also have bylaws as well with local football associations where we give you maybe 3 or 4 games. If you can't honor all of them, we assume that you're not going to be able to honor the rest of the fixtures.
Yeah.
I think perhaps from the PSL side, I kind of empathize with them because it is very difficult for them just to expel Royal AM because Mamkize is very litigious. You can expel and you can expect a fight back, and then it drags on the Nedbank Cup, for example, which has 2 rounds still to be played by Royal AM. They have to play against Milford. If they win, they have to play against Sekhukhune. If they win, they have to play against Sundowns. It's making those cup competitions now more complicated, and the Premier Soccer League can't just kick them out because you can expect that then there will be litigation, and you can expect that could drag on for months, and that will negatively impact the completion of these tournaments and the league. And that's why I was saying that we only have now in May for this season, so all of these disputes have to be cleared up and matches have to be played, if they can be played, between now and May. So the longer this drags on, the more complexity it brings to the dimension.
Lastly then, Nkululeko, reputationally, what has this saga done for the Premier Soccer League, or are there lessons to be taken and perhaps some checks and balances? The fact that a team could find itself in this kind of trouble with the taxpayer. This is a team that receives those allowances that are paid by the league. What lessons are to be learned as far as the reputation of the league is concerned?
We are in the territory where, including the people who are listening to this broadcast, normal millionaires can no longer own Premier Soccer League teams. It is very expensive. Having said that, it means, in effect, that we will always have people who are called tenderpreneurs owning football clubs because the price on the ticket is very expensive. You cannot have 50 million and expect to own a Premier Soccer League club. We've learned this lesson with Swallows, and they told us that they had money problems. We've learned this lesson with other clubs as well, and that's why there's this buying and selling of statuses all the time. Even Celtic, our beautiful Bloemfontein Celtic, which became Royal AM, it would be in existence were it not for SARS and money. Just because I have 10 million and I love football, unfortunately, that no longer qualifies to own a Premier Soccer League club. These realities are one that we have to expect, that these entrepreneurs will have a 5-year, 10-year run, and then they will run out of money, and then another one will come and join. From a reputational perspective, it makes it difficult for the Nedbank. Is the sponsor of the Nedbank Cup, the FA Cup in South Africa, and for them, it's a bad look. They didn't sign up and pay 15, 20 million so that they can be in the news in this way. So it would be very nice if this could be easily resolved, but it's very complicated and there is reputational damage.
All right. Nkululeko Nkewu, thank you for your insights this morning. He is the co-founder of Itiski Media.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretty widespread flooding moving into the Umtrani region all over Pretoria. Multiple routes are flooded along parts of Roger Dyerson. The Uppies River, Flower Street is closed. Also a big crash coming along Paul Kruger at Capital Park, so that's very heavy. The run down through Dusport Tunnel, Bremer onto Transaranya into Pretoria West, still heavily backed up as well. Flooding along the Henops River route through Centurion. The Old Joburg Road underwater. Littleton Road underwater. Blackwood End, Rabi and John Foster, all of those routes are closed. So it just gives you an idea of how bad the traffic is as you sort of loop through the flooding and loop around those closure sections. Midrands, Old Joburg Road, Pretoria Main, Olifantsfontein Road, the old Olifantsfontein, all very heavy as well due to flooding and, well, multiple traffic lights out in that area. M2 into Joburg's really heavy this morning, queuing up from Denver through towards the Crown Interchange. Durban, coming in from the airport, a crash and a breakdown. All of that between Sabaya and Gateway. That's quite heavy. The M4 is looking a lot better. Umhlanga through to Durban now. That's probably not a bad option. Come off at Umhloti and run down that M4 into Durban and avoid the M2. The M2 going north has a crash at Umgeni Road, so that's still very heavy getting up through Spaghetti Junction. Cape Town this morning, the M2 inbound from Robert Sobukwe through to Hospital Bend's busy. M3 still slow from sort of Wynberg Hill territory all the way through to UCT with the opening of UCT this week. And you're also just seeing that in Stellenbosch. A lot of extra traffic into Stellenbosch these days. R304 from Kayamandi, Adam Tusk coming up off Baden Powell, and the R44 arriving in from Jamestown. All of those just routes really static and busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, I want to take some of your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes now. But before I go to the calls, actually, because we were talking football with Nkululeko Nkewu a few minutes ago, let me start with this one. Someone wanting to reflect on Kaizer Chiefs. I wonder what that is about.
Morning, team. It's Kumbuzwe here in Verulam. Angaze ngisheke kanje when the Kaizer Chiefs coach said the humiliating defeat was an accident.
Yo, I choose peace, you know. I don't want to be dragged, and I don't want people who support Amakosi to be coming for me, including people in the studio here who are giving me a look. So I can't add to what you said there about the Amakosi there, including the element of fatigue coming into play there. Let me play this one that has to do with the ANC and its reflections, I guess, about the budget speech that is coming up a bit later on today.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. The current leadership of African National Congress is destroying or killing the African National Congress. You can't bring all people to run the organization at this juncture. Odds are against us now. So I don't know what they are trying to do. But I'm saying we don't have a president, we don't have a secretary. The secretary is the worst one. The worst secretary we had in our organization. Thank you, Samson, for us.
Thank you for that, Samson. And I'm interested to hear you use the odds are against us. And I take it from that you are either a member or a supporter of the ANC, and your words of criticism about the leadership and some of the decisions that they've made and the people that they've deployed in this reconfiguration of the two leadership structures in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. As you know, in Gauteng, it's anchored around Panyaza Lesufi and Amos Masondo, and then in KwaZulu-Natal, the name of Jeff Radebe coming to the fore to be part of this reconfigured leadership structure in that province. Let me take a call from Pat in Katlehong. Pat, good morning. You watched you heard the comments of John Steenhuisen, did you?
Yes, I did, and I was impressed because here in this case, it's whether you agree with the law or you don't agree with the law. You just have to implement what is on the table in front of you. And then this makes me wonder why apartheid took us a long time. Because with the previous nationalist government, they had to uphold the law, whether they agreed with apartheid or what. But I think it's in the nature of the white community that the law needs to be applied to the core, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. So that is my comment.
Yeah, Pat, but also importantly, if you are a minister, you take an oath and you say you will uphold the Constitution and all other law of South Africa. When the Constitution says in the way that it does, the way that John Steenhuisen was quoting it, you simply have to follow through. So you were impressed by his comments.
Yes, and I still find our black ministers wanting, really, because they don't apply what is in front of them.
Well, that's a bit of a generic statement, though, Pat. You have quite a number of ministers who happen to be black who actually do apply the law as it should be.
And those who don't apply the law, actually.
Yeah. All right. Pat, thank you for that. Thank you for your reflections. That's Pat in Katlehong there, reflecting on the comments of John Steenhuisen about particularly issues of inequality in the country and how the law and the Constitution mandates, measures to be taken, including legislative measures to be taken to address those patterns of historical disadvantage. Benito in Tabanchu, good morning. You want to talk to me about the budget speech this morning?
Yes, Mr. Thulasizwe, how are you, my brother?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hoping that today, Mr. Thulasizwe, that the minister can reduce alcohol.
Highly unlikely.
You know what is now, Thulasizwe? Now I'm forced to go back to the stockpile of alcohol. Now, I'm at we are saying at least we must contribute something like 1,000.
It's getting more and more expensive.
It's getting more, and then now, Mr. Thulasizwe, our displays in our houses by display is getting dry now, Mr. Thulasizwe, because every year they're increasing alcohol. Now
every year, my brother. They call it sin taxes. But you are sinning, and therefore we must tax you.
Mr. Thulasizwe, maybe it can increase the Martin of peace. But he must try at least once this year. He must make a miracle.
My brother. Thank you for that call. That's Benito in Tabanchu there, hoping that the increases as far as the so-called sin taxes will not be as much. I don't know if he will be smiling by the time that Minister Enoch Godongwana leaves the podium out there in Parliament. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point with Kethi Mohlahlana is up next here on SAFM after the news. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, mixed expectations ahead of the budget speech and parents alarmed over spread of hand, foot and mouth disease. Good morning. South Africans have mixed expectations to the Finance Minister Ino Godongwana's 2025 budget policy statement in Cape Town this afternoon. They include some economists who've painted a bleak picture of the country's economic future. The budget is government's most important